Okay, we're all here now. Are you ready, Claire? Okay, thank you. So we'll start with the chair's announcements for the Hybrid Planning Committee, and off we go. I have a bit of a frog in my throat, so you'll have to just bear with me on that one. Okay, so welcome everyone to the meeting. This meeting is taking place in the council chamber at Shepton Mallet, and we have members of the planning committee, officers, public speakers, and members of the public physically present in the chamber. We also have members of the public watching the meeting on Teams. Cameras within the council chamber allow us to film the meeting for viewers on Teams and also record the meeting. Therefore, any members of the public present should be aware that they may be recorded, even if they are not participating in the meeting. If this causes you any concern, then please let me know now. No, thank you. Members who have brought their own device with them should ensure that their cameras are switched off, and very importantly, their device microphone and speakers are muted for the duration of the meeting. Otherwise, this causes feedback on the council sound system. Public speakers contributing to the meeting virtually should switch their cameras off and put their microphones on mute until they are invited to speak by the chair. It is not permitted for any other member of the public viewing by Teams to contribute to the meeting at any time. Should any member of the planning committee wish to speak, please raise your hand and catch the attention of myself, the Vice Chair Edric, the Legal Advisor Martin, or lead officers Tessa and Simon. When members in the chamber speak, remember to switch on your desk microphone so that all those in attendance and viewing can hear you. Please do not use the chat function within Teams for anything. All contributions must be made verbally. Please can all mobile phones be turned to silent, and thank you. That's that. Now we move on to the apologies, which, if Helen, do you have any? I think you have.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from councillors.
Phil Davis said, in principle, he was fine with us terminating it on our side, which got rid of the issue for Jones. And then
turn off their mic, please, because we're all hearing you in the chamber. Right, Councillor Hart is being substituted by Councillor Phil Ham. That's the apologies.
Right, thank you. I also happen to know that Councillor Kay will be here, but she is running 10 to 15 minutes late. Okay, thank you. Right, so we now move on to the minutes from the previous meeting, which we start at page, I think, 17. So, right, so page 17, page 18, page 19, page 20, page 21, page 22, page 23, page 24, page 25, page 26, page 27, page 28, page 29, page 30, page 31, page 32, page 33, page 34, page 35, page 36, page 37, page 38, Page 39.
Excuse me.
Have I gone too far? I just thinking how I was looking at it and I was thinking that doesn't look right. Okay. Okay, so we're all happy with them anyway. That's the main thing.
Proposer and second.
Yeah, so the proposer. Martin, and the seconder?
Yeah.
Edric. Okay, so that's done.
Excuse me,
Okay.
Chair, may I just interrupt? There's a person that's joined online, Robert, who seems to be sharing his screen or has his camera switched on. Is that
Okay, Robert, can you turn it off?
they're saying Robert Gass? We're just getting a. If there's anyone called Robert, could you switch your whole system off and rejoin the meeting because it's stopping us from seeing the screen correctly? Thank you.
Are we happy now, Helen? Yeah, okay. So we can move on. Okay, have you got any more to do, Nick? Or
Yeah, bear with me, sorry. The joys of the IT system. I think it's user error this time more than the IT issues. Okay, so this gives you a rough idea of where the WL5 allocation is on the edge of Wells. Is it going to work? Okay, and here's an aerial of the site. So it's a greenfield site, 3 fields. Okay, this is the development framework. So we see it's an outline application. So there are 2 access points, and then the principle of up to 100 dwellings is proposed here. So we've got some ponds and a park and some public open space to the south, and these fingers of public open space within the site and retained hedgerows as per the policy requirements. This is the indicative master plan. So it's shown for indicative purposes. We're not making a decision on that today. This is just to demonstrate that that quantum of development could be delivered within that site. Obviously, a detailed design consideration would come at reserve matters stage. So this is just looking at the principle and the access. Here are the 2 access points on the north of the site off Elm Close. There's also been an agreement with the applicant to provide bus shelters on the north and south side of Elm Close. In the slightly wider area, there's also agreement for an uncontrolled crossing point along the main road Portway. A few photographs, the access along Elm Close and that junction and the cemetery there. So the allocation includes 1 hectare of land to be retained for cemetery expansion, which is shown in the indicative master plan and recommended to be included via controls. These photographs show the site itself. Set of photos. The top one's showing the site, and the bottom one is showing the lane on the bottom, Burcott Road, on the south side of the application. Thank you.
Well, completely relevant question, right?
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on.
Insurance and everything. Yeah.
You have
Quiet now, so
Hmm.
I told you that.
more
Contact.
say.
Yeah.
Afternoon. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Reeves.
Right. This application has been wrongly described as Close Wells. The site is outside the boundaries of Wells and is part of the hamlet of Heybridge in St Cuthbertite Parish Council area. There is a green gap between the 2 settlements which would continue to exist even if the application is passed. There's reference on page 39 of your pack to Wells local plan, which is irrelevant. St Cuthbertite's representation to Mendip on the 20th of January 20 recommended refusal of planning permission for various reasons, inter alia deficiencies in the proposed S106 provisions. A. Provision of a cemetery extension for the whole of Wells and surrounding area cannot be reasonably covered under an S106 agreement. A reasonable planning obligation would be for 1 hectare of land to be provided to preserve the green gap between Heybridge and Wells and to allow for future community facilities, including, say, a combined community hub and village hall and possibly a small extension to the cemetery. The wording of the S106 document must give that flexibility of use to be negotiated with SCO with no caveats for future clawback. On pages 73-74 of your pack, there is discussion about Local Plan Part 2 Policy WL5, which includes a condition that an area will be provided for an extension to the Wells City Cemetery. However, if the requirement for a cemetery extension does not come forward within the plan period, then the need to retain this land could be assessed again in a future plan review. It should be noted that the present extension is forecast to last for 30+ years and cater for a population of 20,000. A similar sized plot would cater for a future population of Elm Close and the rest of Heybridge for about 600 years. The application went to Mendip Planning Board on 22nd of January 20. Members approved the application subject to conditions and an S106 legal agreement. Gladman's planning statement Appendix 1 under cemetery states the agreement will include provisions for the transfer of an appropriate area of land to the city and parish councils. who own and run the present cemetery, to act as a further cemetery extension. During pre-application discussions with the city and parish councils, both have expressed a desire to be informed in the discussions of this element to ensure the clauses operate in an appropriate manner. There has been no such discussion or feedback. Having had recent discussion with Nikki White, it is apparent that the S106 agreement has not yet been finalised. We don't want the situation where, as on Wookey Hole Road, the school is not built within a 14-year period, the land reverts back to Bovis. St Cuthbert Out would urge that there is no decision to pass this planning application until it has had a chance to vet the actual words and potential caveats in the S106 agreement with reference to the so-called cemetery extension. In particular, if there is no requirement for a cemetery extension by the end of the plan period, then the 1 hectare of land should revert to SCO community use. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. That's great. Next person we have is Kate Fitzgerald, please. Thank you, and you have 3 minutes or so.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you to the officer for her positive recommendation. As explained within the officer's report, this application has already been considered by Planning Committee in January 2020, when members resolved to grant planning permission subject to a Section 106 agreement. There are no changes to the development proposals before you today. The only change accommodated for is the inclusion of phosphate mitigation, which is secured by condition. The phosphate mitigation strategy consists of on-site measures achieved through the delivery of a sustainable urban drainage system, as well as off-site measures through the purchase of credits from a scheme at Manor Farm. Since the previous decision, the Local Plan Part 2 Sites and Policies document has been adopted, which allocates the site for 100 dwellings. The proposals are therefore in conformity with the development plan. The scheme will deliver a number of benefits to the local community, including the delivery of up to 100 much-needed new homes, 40% of which will be affordable. Public open space will be provided on site, which will include a children's play area, additional tree and hedgerow planting, and ecological habitat provision. The scheme also makes provision for an extension to the adjacent cemetery in accordance with policy. Building regulations will ensure the new homes are highly efficient. The proposed conditions also require further consideration of the measures and technologies included within the final detailed design of the scheme. The applicant remains committed to the payment of the financial contributions requested previously, including over £700,000 towards expanding local school provision and £24,000 towards improvements identified by the Strawberry Line Society. We will also commit to delivering off-site highway improvements and providing bus shelters on the north and south side of Elm Close. The scheme will lead to local economic benefits, with new customers enhancing the viability and vitality of local businesses and amenities. In summary, there are no changes to the scheme before you today following the previous approval. Where mitigation is needed, this will be secured through conditions or the contributions and requirements of the legal agreement. This development will deliver the needs and requirements of the local community as set out in the local plan, delivering significant benefits. Therefore, in accordance with your officer's positive recommendation and in line with the previous decision, I respectfully ask that you approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. I don't believe we've got any of either of the St Cuthbert Saints members here today. So, excuse me, sir. I didn't hear that.
Can I come in there? Councillor Reid, I think my chair was referring to the unitary members who aren't present.
Exactly correct. Yeah, when I talk to members, I'm talking to members of our committee. Okay, thank you. So as we're not here, I'm going to open it up to the committee now. Is there anybody who would like to make a comment, please? Helen, while you're there, you are allowed to make a comment, but you're not allowed to vote. Okay? Thank you. So are there any comments, please? One comment, Barry.
Thank you, Chairman. These outline planning permissions, they're always hedged about with so many conditions. As we've noted before, I don't know how you make people stick to the conditions that you put upon them, when in some instances they have to report the conditions to the authority themselves. I think there's far too many conditions that can change between now and when they do this development. I think the gentleman who made the point about the Heybridge Cemetery extension, that's well made, because that's the thing that jumps out, that that land would disappear at some stage, subject to certain things happening or not happening. But I'm not necessarily against all the proposal at this stage, but I do think it's something that one's watching carefully by the planning officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Would any of the officers like to reply or not at this time?
I mean, again, Chairman, members, just to reassure you, Councillor Clark, it's a fairly typical route to manage your way through the planning process. Application for outline planning permission, grants the principal, subject to the 20 or so conditions that are set out in the report pack, plus the restrictions and the controls in the legal agreement. Once that's been achieved, as Nikki said, what you'll then see is an application for a detailed scheme. So this application, if you approve it today, consents the principal, guess probably will be back with an application for reserve matters within a year for you to then take the opportunity to, if you like, agree the final details of how the houses will be built on the site.
Can I come back, please?
Yeah, you may come back, Barry.
Presumably one of the conditions, Simon, when they go for full planning permission, is there will be a constraint on when they must start. So the concern about Heybridge Cemetery being some years in the future, which they just revert back to their ownership, that is a non-starter, I take it.
The controls over the delivery of the cemetery will be set out in the legal agreement. So if you like, they'll be slightly independent of the terms of the plan permission, set out specifically in the. That will be properly managed.
Right, thank you, Simon. Thank you, Barry. I think you're happy now. Anybody else? Adam?
Thank you, Chair. Just one question really about the Section 106 agreement, because that was the only real issue raised here. As in, how is that agreed, and is that purely officers, or are the divisional members involved at all, consulted, aware of what's going to go in? Because the devil's in the detail there, according to the parish council here.
Who would like to answer? Nikki?
Yep, thank you. The head terms are the kind of highlights of what's proposed in the Section 106 is set out in the report. So as discussed with the parish council, you know, if members or parish councils wanted to comment on the details, then that's absolutely fine, and we'll publish a draft so that comments can come in on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Edric.
I'm aware that during our briefing and listening to Councillor Reid that he mentioned a community space. Could the office just confirm that from our briefing we had previously on this, why that isn't possible to put that in there, please?
With your permission, Chair, I'll just respond to that.
Yeah, please, Nikki, if you would.
Well, policy WL5 sets out a requirement for 1 hectare area to be safeguarded for the cemetery. So that's not down as community space or a community hub or anything like that. It's very clear in the policy that there is a requirement for the cemetery. So that needs to come in as part of the recommendation. So we can put in some controls around what would happen if that didn't come forward as part of a Section 106, and we're happy to hear from the parish council. But obviously the proposal it needs to be mindful of the policy, and it also needs to meet the tests for planning obligations. So it wouldn't be reasonable in my opinion, it wouldn't be reasonable to put in a requirement to provide a community hall, for example, when the policy is requiring a cemetery extension, and that's what the application is proposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you happy, Edric?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I knew that was the reason from our chair and vice chair's briefing on Friday. I just want you to clarify it for other members of the board and members of the public who are here. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Martin?
Yeah, just a comment really, rather than a question. It falls within the Ramsar site. Instinctively, I'm not really happy with that at all. I see conditions have been required of the developer, and I would very much expect that those conditions are carried out to the full. And that's noted, please, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sure that's noted. I'm sure that's yeah, that will happen. Thank you. So the other Martin, Martin in the corner there.
Thank you, Chair. Some fairly standard questions of the officer. I mean, I appreciate its outline and reserve matters still to come, but can we put a condition at this point? Maybe it's in there already, but clarification, talking about on the subject of the eco home, solar panels, porous materials to prevent flooding, all those sort of issues. And I don't particularly associate Gladman with such things, but maybe it's something we can maybe I can be proved wrong.
Thank you. Nick, would you like to come back on that one, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I can confirm there is a post condition 23 that talks about design, green infrastructure and energy. That was a condition that was added between the last deferrals, so that was to enhance that. Again, it is outlined, so it's just making that clear that any reserve matters application would be expected to fully scope out options to look at that, and obviously that's something that's very important to the council. There's also drainage condition recommended on there that will look at detailed drainage. So for the outline, it's considered that a technical solution can be found, but we need to look at the detail when the detailed design comes in, so that condition's in there as well. So that's all covered by condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Martin, and thank you, Nikki. Okay, as there's no more questions, I think we'll go to the vote. So do I have a proposal? Yeah, do we have a proposal? Adam, you are proposing?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Given that the Section 106 agreement is going to be drafted and there's been opportunities to comment and there's been conditions added, the only issue is the Ramsar, the phosphate issue, which has been okayed by Natural England and the officer recommendation. So I would like to propose approval in line with officer recommendation.
Thank you, Adam. Do we have a seconder? We do have a seconder with Dawn. Thank you. Okay, now we will go to the vote. All those in favour of going with officer recommendation as proposed by Councillor Boyden, please raise your hands. All those against? Any abstentions? No, so that is passed. Thank you very much. And now we will be moving on to our next one, which is agenda item, hold on, I've got to find it, 6, planning application at Little Pomeroy, Church Farm Lane at Farley Hungerford. Please, who's got that one? You've got that one?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So this is application reference 2023-0937 HSE. It relates to residential property of Little Pomeroy in Farley Hungerford. And the application seeks consent for the demolition of existing outbuildings and the construction of a double garage structure. This is an aerial photo of its location. It's sited within the Greenbelt and on the outer fringes of Farley Hungerford. The recommendation is for refusal based on the fact that it's considered to be inappropriate development within this Greenbelt land. This is a location plan of the existing site. We have the existing access here, and the proposed location for the double garage structure is adjacent to the existing access. Again, this is just another site plan that shows the relationship between the existing house and the proposed double garage. There are some wood stalls and an existing outbuilding that will be demolished. These are the proposed elevations of the site. It's a timber structure on 3 sides, and the proposal is to house 2 cars. Again, these are just photographs of the site itself, looking across to the green belt beyond. This is another photograph showing the actual proposed site of the garage structure. And again, another from the front of the site showing the surrounding countryside. So our recommendation is for refusal because the garage itself is considered to be material larger and therefore is considered to be inappropriate within this green belt setting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that one. And I believe our first speaker will be Councillor Ian Hassel. Is that Hassel? Is that correct? In person? Thank you.
Chairman, Hazel.
Hazel. Well, Hassel might be a different word. Yeah.
My name is Ian Hazel and I am the chairman of Norton St Philip Parish Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this agenda item this afternoon. I've lived in the parish for more than 40 years and must claim to know it better than the case officer and members of this committee. Norton St Philip is also unique in this area because the majority of the parish is within the Bristol and Bath Green Belt, and that includes this application. I will assume that you have already read the Parish Council's submission on this item and know that for the reasons contained therein, we resolved to support this application. There are only 4 dwellings along Church Farm Lane, which is a narrow single-track lane. The lane is bounded on both sides by high hedging throughout its length, save for the entrance to the properties. It's on no through route and only used by those who live along it or those out for a country ramble. The one neighbouring property to Little Pomeroy has the benefit of a relatively recent stone-built garage adjacent to it and which is clearly visible from the lane and was shown on the case officer report. This application seeks approval for the removal of redundant sheds in poor condition and replacement by a carport situated closer to the main dwelling, clad entirely in materials in keeping with its environment. It will be much less visible from the lane than the garage of the next door property. Cars which are currently parked in an open area will be able to be properly enclosed and protected and be much less visible. It's difficult indeed to see how approving this application harms the green belt. This application will do the opposite, and I would strongly suggest it will actually improve the green belt. It is significant that not one resident from the small community of Farley Hungerford objects to this application. Indeed, a neighbour in Church Farm Lane, who owns the field below the application site, strongly supports the application as enhancing the rural setting. In previous years as a district councillor, I also sat on the previous planning board for Mendip in this very room, and, when occasion warranted it, voted against officer recommendation. This is another occasion when I would urge you to do the same and approve this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hassel. No, Hazel. I was joking there. Cheers. Okay, next we have Constance Gregory. And you have 3 minutes, Constance, okay?
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to pass on an apology on behalf of the applicants, Deborah and Robin, who were not able to be here due to a pre-booked trip away. Ideally, they would have liked to attend today's meeting. Section 13 of the NPPF determines that an application should be considered appropriate development within the Greenbelt when a proposal is limited infill, which does not have a greater impact on the openness of the Greenbelt than the existing development, does not cause substantial harm to the openness of the Greenbelt, or replaces a building, providing the new building is not materially larger. Openness not only relates to built form and volume, it can also refer to vehicles and other domestic features which interrupt the natural landscape. Parked cars have a visual impact on the landscape, are often visible from afar due to reflections, and can be in stark contrast to surroundings. Their volume is not considered within national planning policy, but does contribute to the visual impact of the dwelling, especially within a rural setting. The proposal would see the removal of an existing wood store and a large timber outbuilding, which is situated away from the dwelling and are visible from the adjacent fields. These would be replaced with a carport located much closer to the dwelling. The proposal would enhance the visual openness of the countryside for the following reasons. The new carport would be sited in close proximity to the built-up area of the site, adjacent to the existing house and road. It would remove domestic paraphernalia from the wider site, reducing the spread of built form and therefore expanding the sense of countryside when viewed from adjacent fields. The proposal would also see the installation of new electric charging points, planting of native trees, swift and back boxes, and rainwater collection, all features which would represent an enhancement to the local landscape and environment. Therefore, although resulting in a small increase in built volume, the proposal would reduce the overall visual impact of built form and domestic clutter, especially with the concealed to the rural setting. It is our understanding that the application is recommended for refusal, as it is considered to have a harmful impact upon the visual appearance of the locality and the openness of the Greenbelt by reason of its bulk, size, siting, and design. We refute this statement with the following remarks. The carport would be at the minimum size for parking 2 cars and therefore would take up a similar footprint to the existing parking area. The roof is hipped to reduce the height and scale of the structure. The proposed carport would be sited less than 15 metres from the main house. It would be read as part of the immediate curtilage of the house and would not be visible from the lane adjacent to the site due to the mature hedging which exists along the north and east boundary. In comparison, the existing outhouse to be removed is 25 metres from the house and is visible from the open countryside. The carport would be oak framed and timber clad. It would be a traditional structure which would be similar in nature to a Somerset grain store and therefore familiar in the landscape. Reclaimed tiles would be used on the roof to match the dwelling. This is in line with the recommendations set out in the landscape character assessment for Farley Hungerford and therefore in accordance with NPPF policy and amended local planning
policy. Martin, our legal advisor, would like to come in at this point.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought members I'd say some words because we don't get many applications within the Greenbelt because the Greenbelt in this particular area is quite a small area, so we don't get many applications. And it's important, and it's set out in the report, but members need to be aware that in these circumstances, you're not applying the usual planning balance that you do in normal planning applications. Because it's Greenbelt, what the National Planning Policy Framework says that inappropriate development in the Greenbelt is by definition harmful and shouldn't be approved, except in very special circumstances. Now, what's inappropriate development? And the NPPF says the construction of any new building is automatically inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. There are a number of exceptions to that, and one of the exceptions that have been mentioned is the replacement of a building. But if you're replacing a building, the new building can't be materially larger than the one it replaces. So we're in a situation here where there's a new building. The officer's view is that it's materially larger than the ones that are being taken away, and therefore it is automatically harmful to the Greenbelt. That's what the NPPF says. Now, if you're going to grant permission for that development, You can only do so if there are, quotations, very special circumstances. And those circumstances won't exist unless the harm to the greenbelt is clearly outweighed by other considerations. And the NPPF goes on to say that you have to give, in making your decision, substantial weight to the harm that's being caused to the greenbelt by the new building, automatically by the new building. So I just thought I'd set those out for you. Those are your parameters.
Oh, thank you, Martin. Am I right in thinking that this is in Adam and Dawn's division? So, Adam, you're the first one to speak because Dawn's put the pen towards you. So, carry on.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. I'll return the favour one day. Just a question really about the exceptions in paragraph 149 of the NPPF. There's also, Martin, you mentioned item D, I think. It's about replacement of a building provided the new building is in the same use and not materially larger than the one it replaced. Office report says that is a bit larger than the one it replaces. There was also G as well, limited infilling or the partial or complete redevelopment of previously developed land, whether redundant or in continuous use, which would not have greater impact on the openness of the green belt than the existing development. That's the main one. I'm assuming this is previously developed now because it's a garden of a dwelling. So it has been developed, laid out. It's not a natural setting. So that would possibly apply, I imagine, as well as argument about whether it's a larger building or not. For me, it's the impact on the openness of the green belt. And I see there's no other real issues about visual impact. Because it is a garden, it is in a hamlet, it's an extra building, and it's within the curtilage of the residence. So for me, it's about whether really seriously this is a harmful development. And I see there's different opinions there. So does G apply potentially?
Okay, thank you, Adam. I think we'll ask who'd like to take that one.
Yeah, I can come in on that one. Martin may also come in. In terms of limited infilling, there isn't a definition of infilling in the NPPF or within our own development plan. I would argue it's not infilling in terms of the spatial kind of characteristics of the site. Previous land excludes residential gardens in built-up areas. So I guess it depends whether we would categorise this as a kind of a built-up area. You know, it is a hamlet. If so, it excludes gardens from the definition of previous land. So my advice to you is really have a look and see whether you think there are those very special circumstances to outweigh the harm that is Martin has outlined. Martin, don't you have anything to add to that?
Okay, thank you, Tessa. Thank you, Adam. I hope that answers your question.
Well, I think that answers one question. Another one is it up to us as members to decide if this is, the question is it inappropriate development first? And then if it is, then it's other very special circumstances. I'm not sure about very special circumstances, but the question is it up to us to agree, because I think it is, if this is an inappropriate development in the green belt, taking the officer's advice, or do officers have direction on that?
The officers advise that they feel the building is materially larger. You can make a different judgment, but when looking at materially larger, you can look at both volume and kind of visual impact of that building. Does that building look materially larger? Our advice to you that it is, but obviously members can take their own judgment. Sorry, Martin, I think you were going to come in as well.
Right, and Martin, our legal advisor, agrees. So we're okay, and so do I for that matter. Right, Dawn, your contribution, please.
Thank you. I think for me, it's about, does this building cause substantial harm? And I think that's the phrase that Martin used. And I'm not sure it does. So for me, I just think about decision really, if it has substantial harm and making substantial harm or not. And that's just the simplicity of what I'm sitting with at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. And I believe Helen would like to have something to say.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and apologies to everyone for my lateness. I just wanted to ask, when you say it's the new building is going to be materially larger than the one it replaces, can you give us some dimensions? Are we talking like 1 metre wider and 1 metre taller? what are the dimensions? Is it going to be twice as large or what? Thank you.
Thank you. So the proposed garage will be 5 metres by 6 metres and it will stand 4 metres high. The existing outbuildings are definitely smaller. I think they're 3 metres by 4 metres from memory. It is contained in the report pack.
But Kirsty, I'm gonna say that's not precise, is it? We don't know. We don't have those the exact measurements of the existing buildings, do we? No.
As far as I remember in the report pack, I thought the measurements were there. Was it 3 by 4 to 5 by 6? It's clearly there somewhere in the pack to back you up.
Oh yes, it's in the report. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I'd seen them, but I was just making sure that thing. So that's okay. So Helen.
Yeah, just to clarify, it's on page 135, and I'm sorry, I phoned you there. But it looks as if this is going to be 2 metres wider and 2 metres longer. And we don't really know about the height. So we've really just got to decide if we think that's going to be, it's also going to be in a material that is arguably more sympathetic to the Greenbelt, timber clad. So one might say that compensates for the fact that it's larger.
Right, thank you, Helen, for your contribution. Who's next? Councillor Height, Benty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Helen has already got an answer for some of it, but I will still maintain that a carport is less intrusive than a garage or a complete building with 4 walls and a roof. And I cannot for the life of me see where the harm is in enhancing and make it a nicer place for your car to rest.
Right, thank you, Benty. And Phil, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I know the area very well, and I do not think this will impede on that area at all. The question I was going to ask, what is worse, 3 or 4 cars, different colours, parked out in the open, and the old shed's still there, whereas if you put in a tidy garage with an electric charging point, but there's no answer to it.
No, there's no answer. I think it's all personal choice for the members. Martin.
Mr. Chairman, may I be so bold as to suggest we go to the vote on this? I think we're being asked to use our integrity, and listening to the debate around the table, I think we've probably come to the right decision.
That's a very good idea. Nobody else wishes to have anything to say. Do we have a proposal? Oh, sorry, Helen has something to say.
No, I was going to propose as well, but I think we need reasons. I'll second that, and I think what the second lady speaker said about how it would be an improvement to the Greenbelt. It will remove cars and domestic paraphernalia from the open area. It will reduce the overall visual impact in the Greenbelt and contribute positively to the rural setting.
Okay, so that's a proposal, and Adam has. Yeah, okay, Edric, you wish to comment?
I'm sorry, everyone else is going forward this. I'm actually against it. I don't see the need for a carport and Greenbelt. I don't see the need for coverage for cars anyway, particularly in a Greenbelt. So why are we allowing a small amount of Greenbelt we have just because we're just outside the Bristol Bath area to be built? So I'm actually against this being built. I don't think it's necessary, and I think it should be left as it is.
Right, thank you, Edric. Well, now we have a proposer in Martin, and we have a seconder in. Yeah, okay. So we're now going to go to the vote. All those in.
Sorry.
Adam, sorry, yeah?
Can I ask what the proposal is? Sorry.
Didn't actually outline a proposal. If you wish me to, I would suggest we recommend this.
Yeah, whichever one of you wishes to propose.
I'll propose it, Helen will second it.
Okay, yeah, and the reasons we have, because Helen gave out reasons, I believe, earlier.
Suppose not acceptance to overturn the officer's decision and actually build the garage.
We won't call it overturn, but we'll use it.
Well, I apologise to the officer for that, but that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah.
To be clear.
Okay.
Chair, just to be absolutely clear, so the substantive motion is to approve the application for the reasons that very special circumstances as set out by Councillor Kay, who seconded the proposal.
Okay, right, so we'll go to the vote. All those in favour of Martin's proposal with Helen seconding, please put your hands in the air. All those against? And anybody abstaining? No, so that one is carried. Thank you. Now we will be moving on to, let me just get this right. Yeah, replacement of 3 rotten timber casement windows at Tipcoat House, Tipcoat Lane, Shepton Mallet, please. And there are no speakers on this one. Bye, Barry. We'll see you in a while. Okay. So I'm not sure who the officer is on this one. Oh, okay, Kirsty, carry on.
Thank you, Chair. This is for 2 items. It's a listed building consent and a full planning application. And it is indeed for the replacement of 3 timber casement windows. It concerns the application site of flat 4 Tipcoat House in Shepton. This is an aerial view of the immediate setting of the application site. The application is a listed building house grade 2 and it resides in the conservation area as well. This is the location plan of Tipcoat House. These are the proposed windows. At present, the existing windows are in a poor state of condition and are beyond repair. This shows the elevation of the other existing windows. The house has been converted into flats, so it is the middle 2 windows on the north elevation and the single window on the south elevation that are proposed to be replaced. And this is these are photos of the existing window and the 2 other windows on the south elevation, on the north elevation. Our recommendation is for approval. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. We have no public speakers, so we're going to the people from Shepton Mallet. So the first one would be Benty, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have got no objection at all to this here. I fully support the application. Softwood windows in Shepton Mallet, where it rains more than the sunshine, is absolutely appalling. There are people living there, and they will end up living in that condition if this problem is not sorted. So I fully support the application and have 3 new windows put in, hopefully in more material than softwood. And so I fully back up the application, and I will propose that we go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Benty. Martin is next one.
Chair, as was simply before us because of the fact that it is connected with one of our council colleagues. I think under normal circumstances it would just sail through, and this has my full support. I recommend approval.
Okay, Helen.
Just one comment, which is that I think it's a shame that people don't feel confident to be able to apply for double glazing on even in areas, conservation areas. There are 2 windows here that have got a north elevation. I think they're at the top of the building, and one facing south. They're going to be very cold windows. They're going to be replaced with single glazing because it's a conservation area. And I just wanted to make that observation, that it would be great if we were allowed to have double glazing on, especially when they're not especially visible high up.
Thank you, Helen. That's a constructive observation. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? No? So, yes, there is. Martin, you're back again. Yep.
If the officer is not going to respond to that, I'll come back. That Actually, there's no objection to secondary glazing being put in on those windows, so which would have the same effect.
Thank you for that clarification, Martin. Cheers. Okay, as for that, can we go to a proposer, please, which I believe we have with Benty. We don't have a seconder at the moment. Oh, we do. Adam, thank you. Okay, so
Because it's the listed building consent as well.
right, so we do the two votes. Yeah, that's fine. So on the first vote, excuse me, all those in favour of officer recommendation, as by Benty? Thank you.
Unanimous.
Okay, that's unanimous. Now we're going to have to do the same vote again. Are you prepared to propose and second again? Right, thank you. All those in favour? And it's unanimous again. So we've done that one. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to move on. I'm looking at the time. It's only 3 o'clock. We're doing very well. Oh, this will slow us up a little bit. We're moving on to the siting of 2 timber buildings to form Father Christmas Grotto at Critchhill Farm, Critchhill, Froome, Somerset. Okay, and this one is being presented by Anna, I believe.
Should be green. Oh, there we go. It's on green. Well done. Okay. So this presentation relates to land at Critchhill Manor in Froome. The application seeks full planning permission for the siting of 2 timber buildings, which will be used as a Father Christmas Grotto. This is a resubmission of an identical scheme which was refused in July 2023. So this slide just shows the location of Critchhill Manor, just outlined here in the red circle, just to the west of the settlement of Froome. And then this slide just shows the location in a little bit more detail. The site is basically over here on the western bit, in a kind of green wooded area around here. Approximately 165 metres southwest of the manor, which is up here, and accessed via a long drive off of Critchhill Hill, around here. So there's an existing car park which serves the various activities already taking place on the estate, including the football ground, which is around here. So it's really hard to point on this map. And then this plan on the right just is a tiny bit more detailed. So we've got the location of the 2 timber sheds for the grotto, and then the no dig path coming from the car park, which is up to the north. This slide just quickly shows the proposed elevations of the grotto buildings. Here are a couple of photos of the site which were taken a couple of months ago. Football ground, sort of buildings, and a bit behind here you've got the existing car park. And this is kind of the entrance into where the grotto would start. And then I revisited the site last week, and you can see that the grotto, the 2 timber buildings have already been erected on the site, and it's currently operating as the grotto without planning permission at the moment. So here are the grotto sheds buildings. You've got a little walkway through the trees to get to them. This is just a view from the field out, so they're just quite small actually in the background there. But it's just worth pointing out quickly that the cabins that have been put up don't quite match plans that we've got on the submission. Basically, yeah, hopefully this has just provided a useful summary of the application. For the reasons outlined in my report,
basically that it's an unsustainable location. I'm recommending that the application be refused. And just finally, since the agenda report pack full committee was published, we've received an email from one of the objectors raising concerns about the buildings being used for other businesses operating on the wider estate outside of the festive period. That's just something else to consider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Now we go to public speakers, which is Mr. Craig Gillett, is it? First Father Christmas. Gillett, yeah, there he is. I saw you got the beard. Okay, you have 3 minutes.
I am Father Christmas. All Mrs. Claus and Helpful Elves want to do is provide an excellent and jolly experience for all the families that want to come and see us once a year. Everyone is happy apart from your planning officer, who is concerned that we will attract lots of new traffic and therefore be unsustainable. Some of our visitors will be in electric cars. Some will be shared, joint family trips, and some will be combined trips with visits for drinks and the cafe and football at GO8 and the adventure playground that they offer. We are keen to support the cafe as it is a new venture. Nearly half of all our visitors are local, and those that do come from further afield often combine their trips with town centre visits. Also, the site we have chosen has excellent access, an existing car park, and an existing use. So we are not bringing new traffic, but replacing lost glamping and relocated football traffic that can already come and go from the site. Another important point is that we are relocating from Pyle Farm, Truddock's Hill. Planning officer wrongly concludes that Santa still has a grotto there, but he doesn't. What operates there on a very limited date and time basis is simply a pre-existing walk, and they've added now a Santa meet and greet. This is not my grotto that I have relocated to the application site. My visitor traffic is relocating, so there is no change to the traffic on the road. Interestingly, on the respective Pyle Shop Farm application back in 2020, but considered under the same planning policies your officers advised, the site is outside of development limits. The proposal would enable the diversification of an established farm with a rural business. The proposal would serve the local area and extend the attraction of the area to visitors. The proposal is of a scale appropriate to the location and in accordance with policies CP1, CP3 and CP4. My new location is closer to Frome and adjacent to the existing uses. The site is not open countryside or remote. The traffic is the same, but with a higher proportion of electric cars and travelling a shorter distance. Your officer's interpretation of the policies is literal and harsh. Sustainability includes social, economic and environmental elements. The policies are quite old and don't say that rural businesses can't be allowed, but merely that regard should be had to sustainability. We say that we're in accord with policy CP1, 3 and 4, which support local community facilities, economic development, visitors attractions and rural businesses. Mrs. Claus and I can't provide the experience we offer in a pop-up vacant shop. I want to offer a jolly and fitting Christmas experience for all our visitors. With your support, we can do that. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Cheers. And our next speaker is Mr. Gordon Perry. As himself.
Yeah. Hi, Chair, Vice Chair and committee members.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Can I just start by saying our intentions were all good to do things by the book, and we're assured that the buildings were not an issue as they are within building regs and building guidelines. All involved in the grotto are extremely passionate about spreading joy and lasting family memories for children of Frome and the local areas at a time when, boy, we all need that, don't we, really? The fact that we are the only grotto that offers a Mrs. Claus locally is something that goes down well with lots of families, making shy children more comfortable with a female presence. I don't understand why this did not get to board in June and has taken 9 months to get to this point. Bearing in mind this Christmas event would be operating in December, hence the decision to go ahead with the build. Unfortunately, the council denied it on sustainability grounds, citing a lack of public transport. The first application was decided by one person along with the planning officer. Surely this isn't right. The Critchell estate boasts various thriving businesses, including the local football team's training ground, also a golf course for 30 years. Interestingly, our previous location was also without a bus route. Most families opt for carpooling, and our foot traffic is minimal, averaging 6 families per hour. We take our commitment to sustainability seriously. Our dedication to offering quality keepsake gifts over plastic toys is a testament to this. Plastic consumption weighs heavily on our environment, and we're passionate about minimising that impact. We like to promote and support local business on our social media pages. We also offer free advertising on the back page of our activity books that we give away to every child. As for supporting the local community, we offer all types of services in the grotto, including SEND sessions, also including sessions for some very poorly children. The local parish council stands by us, recognising the incredible experience we provide local families during the holiday season. The overwhelming support from our customers on our initial application speaks volumes. We'd be heartbroken to cease the grotto next year, and it would really be sad to see a small family-based business be turned down from the council at a time where small businesses are already struggling. Your support would mean the world to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes. And next we have Councillor Jim Dowling.
Chair, I think
Online?
I think that Councillor Dunk is going to speak. He can't.
He's not down here.
Oh, he's going to speak on behalf of Mr.
Okay, but we can allow Councillor Dunk to speak. We know he.
Is that okay? Yeah, because Jim just said if he didn't have a decent connection, he wouldn't be able to read his comments. Hang on a sec. I'll just get it open in front of me. Yes, I've got 3 minutes, have I?
Yeah, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Right, these are the comments. Let me start by saying that last year my daughter and her 3-year-old son visited the applicant's grotto in Shroddocks Hill and considered it one of the best Santa experiences they'd ever visited. It is in a rural setting within half a mile of Frome. Such an experience could not be replicated in an urban or industrial setting. Wherever such an event was situated, it is highly unlikely that these young children and their parents will walk or cycle in the depth of winter. If fully booked, visitor car journeys will be only a 12 per hour. There are 3 schools close to the site, and it is likely that many bookings will coincide with school pickup times. If this application were refused, it is likely that local customers will travel to alternative venues further afield, such as East Somerset Railway or Bowood, increasing car journeys but reducing visitors to Frome. There are no obligations from highways, ROW officers, and it is not visible from the highway, and the heritage of Critchell Manor will not be affected. There will also be no harmful impact on residential amenities. This is a high-class event that will attract visitors from further afield to Frome, and SBC urge the Planning Committee to support this application. However, it might be wise to put a restriction on the use of the building during the rest of the year. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. And you're taking the place of Councillor Dowling, correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we move to members, and now I happen to notice that Martin is the co-person, the member for that area.
Selwood Parish actually covers, I think, 2 of our wards in Frome, and so I'm one of 4. Yeah, I actually wanted this to be brought to the committee. I think it was in August, and it was refused. I don't quite understand why it was refused. I've been at the parish, I'm not a member of the parish council, I've been at parish meetings where it was discussed at length. And I think the logic of the argument's been presented by Mick Duncan. There's not a lot more I can say about it. I think it should go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Next person, Helen. Oh no, Claire got her hand up first.
I think we have to make a judgment call when it comes to sustainability of transport in rural areas, because the alternatives to cars is limited. Unfortunately, we all want that to be different. I just think that I'm glad it's come to committee. Well, I'm not glad. I'm embarrassed it's come to committee, to be honest. And I think that I would like to propose that we approve this application on the grounds that it's Christmas and it's a great idea, concept, and we want to support small business. Hope I get a seconder.
Right. Thank you, Claire. I think Martin's got that. Next person to speak is Helen.
I think probably everybody has said it. It is magical. I went down and had a look, and you have to walk through the woods, and I think they get lit up in the evening. I actually remember realising Santa Claus wasn't real when I got to, when I went to see Santa Claus in a department store. I really don't think I think these people know what they're talking about in terms of providing a Santa experience. I don't think that our planning officers, that's their area of expertise. And so I don't think that I take your point about the sustainability, and it's something that comes up a lot. But we're always allowing housing developments and all sorts of things to go through, which are going to be car dependent. This is going to be for a short time of the year, and actually it's not very far at all from Frome. So if it's not already been seconded by Martin, I'd like to second it on the grounds of the things that people talked about, which was supporting small businesses, and there was a couple of other things. It also supports CP1, CP3, CP4. It's not in the open countryside, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I think Claire wishes to come back.
Just want to come back quickly.
Hang on, Claire. We've got to go to Benty first.
Oh, can I just quickly say that I do think Father Christmas is true and is for people that believe. Just want to put that back on record.
Thank you. I like that, Claire. Benty, turn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I feel a bit shocked about this here. That it was not debated when there was a good time to make it as festive, as interesting, and whatever a child may think going into Father Christmas and his nice wife. I cannot understand why it was denied back then when everybody knew that Christmas was going to happen. And I would like to know also who, as I understand, it's an old golf course, and how can that be sustainable for bicycles or anything that will make it easier? It's still what it is, and I think it should just go ahead. And it's a shame that it is coming up now on the 4th or 5th of December. I think actually we should be ashamed of ourselves now, and I would like at some time be told which one person it was that could stop this here, not coming to the full application.
Can I just jump in there?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Benty. Tessa, you'd like to jump in?
Yeah, I think it's important to say that decisions are never made by one officer. The officer makes a recommendation, it's signed off by their line manager, and it was also referred, and the chair and vice chair, I'm not sure, decided it shouldn't come to committee. So I think it's really important not to put blame on one officer for that decision.
Okay, thank you, Tessa. Did that answer your question, Benty? Right, thank you. Barry.
I'm new to all this, Mr. Chairman, but it surprises me that one person and a planning officer can decide to stop something like this, which has got not only benefit to ordinary children, it's got benefit to deprived children and all sorts of other families that need a bit of light relief at this time of year. And if it's refused on the grounds of sustainability, sustainability to me is when we're talking about housing estates and houses that have got to be sustainable for 20 years. Not something that's got to be sustainable for 4 weeks. If we refuse this, I think we should end up being a laughing stock. Thank you.
Okay, Barry, thank you for your comments. But if you know the system, you know it is now at the committee, so it's being decided by the people here. Okay, so it's here. It is at the committee. All right. Edric wishes to speak now.
Can I just clarify, can we, if this gets approved, can we put restrictions on future use away from this festive period?
Yeah, I mean, the application is applied for Santa Grottos and that is the use, so they haven't applied for any use outside of that period. So there's no flexible use in the description, so that is the use. And we would condition it for the certain amount of days as applied from the application, and whether it's for continuous 1 year, 5 years, whatever the committee for necessary or a permanent use.
Sorry, so can we condition it is only used for, say, 6 weeks of the year leading up until Christmas?
Yeah, we can do, yeah.
Okay, well, I recommend that then.
I think their dates, the case officer can answer the dates will be in the application form. We can condition it to that, that's fine.
Yeah. Helen, you'd like to come back in?
Yeah, just regarding those conditions, it's just that as they pointed out, I live quite close to this area and I've been down there when it had glamping there, and there was a double-decker bus serving food. There were there were glamping special wigwam type tents. There were even sort of like aircraft pilot areas that have been converted into places for people to stay. So actually what this is doing is and there were yurts, and I actually did a singing workshop in a yurt. So I actually I'm not against these units being used for something during the rest of the year if it aids diversification of the rural economy. So I mean, we may need to, I would suggest therefore, Edric, that maybe you might want to propose that as an amendment, that we take that separately. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Helen. As you were named, Edric, do you wish to come back with?
I think I need to seek officer advice on this and how you proceed with that.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the applicant hasn't applied for those uses, so unless it's ancillary to the land, then the application is what's in front of you for Santa's Grottos. Martin, again, might want to add anything further.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, through. I'd agree with that. I mean, if the applicant does want to use them for other uses throughout the year, they could apply to do that, and the impacts of those uses could then be assessed at that point. So it wouldn't necessarily stop them, but at this point, you're being asked for quite a specific change of use. So I think officer's advice would be that you do condition it for what the applicants are wanting. Yeah.
Okay, you happy, Helen? Yeah. Okay, who would like to speak next? Phil?
I'm just coming back on that point, Chair. I think you'll find in the application that the other months of the year it will be used for storage for the football club, for balls and such things. I think you'll find that's already in the application.
Thank you, Phil. Right, anybody else? Adam? You Dawn, that is your hand. I did point to you and I wondered if you were waving your hand or whether it was just up there. So you go first.
Okay, I just wanted to point out that Santa does exist. He's sitting over there. He did introduce himself. Also, I did speak to one of the football coaches. Between 60 and 80 children come to the site every single weekend, depending on what game's being played. So it's not like it's going to be any different to what's already happening. So it already has quite a significant footfall. And yes, the storage I did see in there to be used during the rest of the year for storage.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. Adam, you can have your turn now.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I wouldn't want to impose any more onerous conditions on this one. The application is as it is, and we've got. I think also we need to support rural business diversification and Father Christmas himself.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam, for that. So, excuse me, we have a proposal from Claire, and we have a seconder from Phil. So we'll go to the vote. So all those in favour of going with Claire against officer recommendation, please put your hands in the air. All those against?
2.
And abstentions, which is me. I'm going to be a sort of a halfway a Grinch. Okay. Thank you.
Chair, just can I come in on that?
Yes, sir.
And in terms of conditions, can those be delegated to officers in consultation with the chair and vice chair, please?
Yeah, is that okay? Yeah, okay, all sorted. Okay, that one is passed then with the. Thank you, thank you. Okay, we've got time to move on. Yeah, we're doing okay time-wise. Right, now we're going, which is surprising me a little bit because I don't see any speakers. We're going to the former Bailey's factory at Beckery in Glastonbury. If some of you noticed, I did ask people to go and visit this one if they hadn't or didn't know it properly. Very important one. So we will start with Anna. You've got this one.
Thank you, Chair. Got the next. I'm going to say the next two because it's basically a parallel planning and listed building application. So we'll do them both at the same time, if that's all right. So this relates. This presentation relates to two derelict Grade 2 listed building complexes that were once part of the Bailey's leather works. The application forms part of the Glastonbury town deal and proposes to repair and convert the buildings into multi-use workspaces. So this slide just shows the location of the buildings within the Moorland Enterprise Park to the west of Glastonbury town centre. This is just the location in a bit more detail, basically. So it is always quite hard to tell on these slides, but you've got these kind of complexes of buildings. You've got the Bailey's West building and the Bailey's East building here with a road kind of running through. And this is the proposed site plan. So essentially they're proposing to kind of renovate the existing buildings, have a car park to the northern bit of the site here. It's a bit confusing because the plan's like not facing north, if that makes sense, and to the west here. So this is just a couple of photos to show the state of the current buildings. So they're in quite a poor state, really, in need of restoration and repair. There we go. And it's really complicated to show this plan, but basically the Bailey's West building is going to be mixed uses, including offices, small workshops, storage and a cafe. And then the Bailey's East building on this bit of the other side of the road is offices, small workshop, storage and a media studio for lectures and music performances. There's obviously more ground floor, like more floor plans, but you can't really see very much, to be honest, from that. And then this is a little bit of a spot the difference, just showing the existing and proposed elevation. So existing on the left, proposed on the right, but essentially the proposed works involve the internal alterations to the listed buildings. Externally, the key visual changes relate to the reconstruction of parts of the building following fire damage. So you can see on this that we're having a new roof put on. There's a link building, so demolition of a replacement 1970s link building. Another spot the difference, but basically other changes relate to repointing stonework, changes to fenestration, replacement of roof coverings. We've got insertion of some metal stairs here, and repairing some of the historic louvres on the side around here. So quite hard to tell from the drawings, but essentially it's kind of like a refurb of the buildings. So hopefully that's provided a good summary of the site and the application. And for the reasons outlined in my report, I'm recommending that the application be approved subject to the conditions outlined in my reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'm looking at my list and we have no speakers in the room on this one, but I do have where I'm going to read out from Councillor Liz Lyshon, who was my predecessor in Glastonbury, and I'm going to read something from her before I go on, and I will make some comments myself. Thank you. But I am surprised, I'm going to make the comment, I'm surprised that there is nobody here speaking for the Bailey's building. Okay, this is from Liz. And it says, I'll put it here, it just goes, for the attention of the Planning Committee East, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to support the planning and listed building applications for the Bailey's buildings in Beckery, Glastonbury. Although I am not currently an elected member representing Glastonbury, I was for 5 years one of the 2 county councillors of Glastonbury Street, and I sit on the Glastonbury Town Deal Board. The Bailey's buildings were at the industrial heart of Glastonbury during my childhood in the town, and to see them restored to use as places of commercial activity and employment would be a massive step forward at a time when economic growth is much needed. That is particularly true where opportunities can be developed for younger people in the local community and where opportunities can come forward for local construction companies and the supply chain. The vision for the restoration of these buildings has been in full view for many years, and the town deal brought forward the best opportunity any of us could have hoped for. These are historic buildings, and the ambitious project of restoration and development is absolutely what the town and our community both needs and deserves. It has been I have been assured that the adopted highway leads directly to the entrance for the west car parking, and I've been in communication with the traffic engineer for the Mendip West area to start discussions about the possibility of parking restrictions on the adopted highway to ensure safe access to the west car park if this application are approved today. I will pursue that approach along with the 2 division members for Glastonbury. And that's from Liz. Thank you. And as many of you will know, Liz was when it was a combined between Glastonbury and Street. Liz was was one of the 2 representatives for that area. Right, now, where do I start? This is a long awaited development, and it's, as Liz has pointed out, it's so important. It will do so much for our town and for the town of Glastonbury. I shouldn't say our town because I'm the only one who lives in Glastonbury, but it will do so much. And it's been there, a derelict building, for so long, and just to see it sorted will be amazing. And the fact that it's been able, and this team of volunteers, who one is sat in the is sat here actually, who have been or more, who have been working so hard on it over the years. I think it's really important, and I'm going to urge you to support it. Support this application, and I very rarely speak. I'm only speaking about this one now because it's in Glastonbury, and I'm really chuffed to see it come forward. But I will share one funny anecdote with you. I actually worked in Bailey's. I managed one day, and I said that's not for me, and went. So yeah, so I think so, and I think. It's worthwhile, and any of you who did manage to go and have a look and understand the building, you will appreciate that this is a big thing, a big development, and really important for our town. So I'm hoping that you will all find it in your way to support it, please. So let's go forward. Who would like to be the first one to comment? Helen.
I'm really pleased to see that although it's a historic building, that there's going to be on-site generation of energy, including solar panels on buildings B, G, and solar hot water heating tubes on buildings A, C, D, and F, and water efficiency measures, i.e. collection of rainwater to be used for flushing toilets. All integrated into the scheme. So I actually think that that's marvellous, because these are presumably listed, aren't they? And that you're still going to do that, which is great. Some of you may have seen that Cambridge University did something on one of their very historic buildings recently like that. So I'd like to propose that we accept this with as proposed with officers' approval. Look for a seconder on both accounts.
Thank you, thank you, Martin, for seconding. Does anybody else wish to make any comments? Edric.
Just one quick one. I fully support this, but just so people sitting here and listening online may send us information inviting us to go and visit sites, I received the invite on Thursday afternoon quite late. I'd already seen the outside of the site and I'm well aware of it, but just for no, if anybody else wants to send us information, could you give us more than a couple of days working notice in future? Would be great, because some of us are quite busy with other work. And the invitation to go and look at the site came sort of 5 p.m. on Thursday, and I was unable to find the time within this short time frame to visit. So for the benefit of anybody who could be listening to this online, can you give us a bit more time if you want to invite us to actually go and look around somewhere? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Edric. Very good. Yeah, very good comment there. Makes sense. So we've got nobody else wishes to make a comment. We have proposal from Helen. And yeah, we've got to do 2 votes, and seconded by Martin. So we'll do the first vote first. All those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay. So there's nobody against, nobody else. We'll do the second vote again, providing Helen and Martin are happy to do their bit. Okay. All those in favour?
Same again.
Unanimous again. Thank you. So all passed. All good. Thank you. Right. I'll ask the members, do you wish to have a quick comfort break now for 10 minutes? Okay. Thank you. So 10 minutes. So if we're back here by 1:45. Let's get started. Okay. So we're going on to it's the Wrangles. I've got to find it now. I had it here just a minute ago. Bristol Road at Greenore, and exchange of use of land to residential and to the extend the garden and the annex carport. And this is Jane.
Thank you, Chair. So this presentation does indeed refer to application reference 2023-1390. It's a full planning application, and Chair has just read out the description of development, which is sort of a multi-part description. So I've tried to sort of break it down into logical parts for you. Right error again. So the Wrangles comes off the Bristol Road just north of Greenore, and it comes down this really long private driveway which serves the Wrangles, which is where you can see the red line, and also a Long Wrangle farmhouse, which is here, and also in the little cluster is Rookery Farm, which is to the west there, which is served by its own private access to the west. And this is a more detailed, so you can see this at the end of the access driveway, and that's the site of the Wrangles. The L shape is the house. The top yellow box is the carport. The green hatched area is the part of land that is subject to the change of use application, which is the material part of really why this is in front of you. And then an annex has been erected on that new bit of land. So it's an aerial photo. As you can see, the 2022 shot, which does actually show the finished site, was clearly the satellite was having an off day. So I've gone back to the previous one, which is much clearer, before the annex was erected, but after. You can see the curtilage has been sort of squared off with this additional bit of land to the south here. You've got the house in the L shape, the carport, that's Rookery Farm, and this is the Long Wrangle farmhouse. So the house was a conversion from agricultural building, was approved in 2016 under that reference number, and that is the plan that was approved, a single-storey dwelling with the extension at the top of the picture there. And this is what has actually been built out. The differences are that the extension, the lateral extension is 1 metre longer or wider. And the first story bedroom accommodation has been added. It was single story before. And I did summarise in the report the differences, which basically were to do with the width. Both the roof heights and the ridge lines are slightly higher. Solar panels have been added, and 2 additional roof lights. So there were already 5, but there are now 7
to the western elevation, the western roof slope. So that's the house. To all intents and purposes, reads to the sort of casual observer would read exactly the same as it looked originally and was originally approved, though there are minor differences. Then the carport has been erected. You could just see it, actually, if I go up, you could, it's just past where the grey van is. That's the plan of the carport, very simple structure, open carport with storage each end, a pitch roof, and that's it. You can see its relation, you can imagine its relationship to the house and also to Rookery Farm behind it. We were invited by the neighbour at Rookery Farm to go next door and have a look at it from that side of the wall, as it were. So you can see the ridgeline of the converted house with the roof lights. You can just about see the profile of the solar panels, and then just where my cursor is now is the roof of the carport. And then these buildings are the buildings of Rookery Farm, which are to the rear of the main house. And that is a view out of the second floor at Rookery Farm, and you can just see the ridgeline of the house at their angles. So just repeating the site plans, we've dealt with the house and the garage. Again, the green hatched area is the bit of land that has been added or seeking to be added to the curtilage. And that sort of gives you some impression of it at the front of the house, as it were, the two sides of the driveway. And I'm standing, taking that photograph with my back to the front door of the annex, so you can see the relationship between the house and the annex. This is the proposed annex. And that is a picture of the annex. You can see there's sort of a clear and simple link between the carport, which is to the right, the house, which is behind where I'm taking the photograph, and the annex. And it all reads really as one domestic curtilage, and it's squared it off. So the change of the use of the land is outside the development limits, but it does read with the existing property. Restrictions regarding future development will be included with any planning approval. So on the whole, we consider it to be acceptable and recommend approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jane. I was just looking there. So next we go to the Tracy Merritt, please. And Tracy, you have 3 minutes, okay?
Good afternoon, Chair, members and officers. I act for Mr. Jones Pratt of Rookery Farm, which is adjacent to the development site. This is a highly sensitive site in open countryside in the AONB, the most protected landscape designation. The original barn conversion was permitted by planning in 2016 for a substantially smaller development, which restricted both the height of the main building and the extension to a lower level, and removed permitted development rights to prevent further development of this rural site. This was done to protect my client's residential amenity and the AONB. There has been no change in local plan policy since 2016. What has been built involved 18 breaches of planning control. The case officers just set them out. A larger main building, which is higher to allow for a second floor, an extension which is wider and higher than permitted, and the development includes a separate annex with its own curtilage, which has been taken from agricultural land, a separate access, and a large carport, large enough to be used as a unit of holiday accommodation, together with solar panels and more roof lights than previously permitted. It is now, however, being recommended for approval by the planning officer with a suggestion that conditions control the use of the two outbuildings as ancillary to prevent holiday use. This harm cannot be mitigated by the use of conditions. The use of the two outbuildings could not be adequately monitored due to the property's remote location. The applicants say this is required for separate accommodation for guests. How can paying guests be distinguished from non-paying guests? An inspector in an appeal decision which I sent to the case officer considered that a condition would not enable the ancillary link to be maintained, since it could be breached without the council knowing. This is a clear-cut abuse of the system by the applicant with a bold disregard for the planning system, and the question is, should the applicant be rewarded for his breaches of planning control by the grant of a permission? Should the council not be taking enforcement action to remove this development, which was found to be unacceptable in 2016 under the same policies? Your enforcement policies objectives include to ensure the credibility of the planning system and to ensure fairness to those who adhere to it. If you grant planning permission, this does exactly the opposite and will encourage landowners in Somerset to disregard planning control and build what they want without fear of enforcement action being taken. There is a principle of consistency of decision-making in planning law, and as in this case, where there's been a previous determination of the issues, that is a material consideration to be given great weight in the decision-making process. Should you contemplate granting planning permission for this application, then you will have to provide compelling reasons why that is justified when there has been no change in policy or circumstances since 2016. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Next, we have Maddie Williams, who is the agent. Yep, please, thank you. And you have 3 minutes as well, Maddie.
Good afternoon. My name is Maddie Williams and I'm a planning consultant working for Hill Redding Architects and acting on behalf of the applicant. This application does seek approval for the change of use of land to residential, erection of 2 outbuildings and alteration to the fenestration of the property. These works are retrospective and therefore our applicant is seeking to regularise the current situation. We consider that the proposed works have been designed to a high quality standard in accordance with local planning policies DP1 and DP7. Cues have been taken from the main dwelling and neighbouring properties throughout the design process to ensure that the proposed outbuildings integrate well within its setting and reflect the character of the area, whilst also ensuring it does not have a detrimental impact on the AONB. We understand this application has been referred to Planning Committee as the Parish Council have objected to the scheme and it's considered a departure from the local plan. In this instance, this specifically relates to the proposed change of use of agricultural land to residential. This will expand the residential curtilage and provide a more proportionate green amenity for the applicant and allow for the siting of the proposed annex, which has been positioned to be subservient to Rookery Farm. Careful consideration has been given to the location of this expansion. The residential curtilage is to be extended towards the southeast and is in alignment with the existing development pattern of the neighbouring property, therefore does not cause any harm to the AONB or open countryside to the north of the site. Whilst we acknowledge the Parish Council's recommendation for refusal, we note that no justification has been provided, and we understand that under the new delegation process, there has to be reasons. Unfortunately, we are unable to respond directly due to the absence of their comments. Further to this, we are aware of objections made by the occupants of Rookery Farm, located to the southwest of the applicant's site. Comments have focused on the loss of residential amenity, particularly with regards to the fenestration to the southwest elevation of the property. This elevation is approximately 25 metres away from Rookery Farm and is also separated by a 2-metre boundary wall. Therefore, we consider that these alterations do not allow for any overlooking and eradicates any potential loss of residential amenity. Therefore, we ask you to dismiss these letters of objection. We do appreciate that the alterations made to the fenestration of the main dwelling differ from that approved under application 2016-0786. However, we would like to emphasise that there is only one more additional conservation roof light installed, which will act as a form of ventilation for the habitable rooms within the roof space. This is a requirement under building regulations and considered good practice in accordance with the National Design Guide. The installation of solar panels will also increase the energy efficiency of the property in accordance with DP7. We consider that the proposed scheme has been achieved in a sympathetic and respectful manner, which integrates well within the surrounding area and causes no harm to the AONB. The extension of the residential curtilage aligns with the existing development pattern of the neighbouring property and accommodates the annex. Therefore, we consider this to be a sustainable form of development, and we hope you agree with the case officer's recommendation to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm just looking. Right, do we have a ward councillor for Greenore? I thought we might have one. Okay, Edric, you go first.
Thank you. My concerns around any sort of departure development in what was the OMB, it's now the Mendip Hills National Landscape, just for reference. And I'm also concerned about having roof lights and dark skies. I'll limit my comments to those at the moment and see what the rest of the committee have to say.
Okay, thank you, Edric. Right, who would like to go next? Helen, I thought I could guarantee on you. Thank you.
I haven't really, I have to admit, I've not visited this one, and you can't see it, I don't think, on Google Maps either, because it's down the lane. So I'm not sure if there is any footpaths or who gets to see this, but I don't think it's that unlike the one that we had earlier, which was in the Greenbelt. And we had quite a long debate there about a small carport. And here we've got in an area of outstanding natural beauty where I would have thought that our policies should apply more strictly than they would if it was just open countryside. So I am a bit concerned, but then the first speaker said that there were 18 breaches of planning control. And about this whole thing about setting a precedent that, you know, they've gone up 2 stories instead of 1, they've got the extra footprint, the change of land use, 2 extra outbuildings, extra windows, all those sorts of things. It kind of is a signal that if we allow this to go through, that people can, if they're in a remote area, do things that are not according to our planning rules, and they're probably likely to get away with it if they put in a retrospective planning application. So I'm just a bit concerned from that point of view about approving this. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Helen. Martin, you wanted to come in first?
Yes, Chairman. What I'd advise is that members look at the planning merits of what's before them. Clearly, there has been a retrospective development here that's unauthorised. But what you're being asked to look at is what these current scheme and drawings, whether they are acceptable, applying your planning policies and material considerations.
Thank you, Martin. Simon, did you?
I was just going to remind members.
Right, thanks for that, Simon. Okay, who would like to come in? Anybody wish to, any questions? Well, no, so we'll allow Edric to come back in now then.
Can I just confirm the restrictions on use of the annex? I think that would be my major concern then. And again, so as it's been said by the objector from speaking on behalf of Rookery Farm, how do you know if they're going to use it as an Airbnb apart from seeing it on Airbnb? And how do we take enforcement for such things? And I still have concerns about roof lights and dark skies in the national landscape, please.
Okay, Jane, are you taking a reply for Edric?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we were playing ping pong there. So first things first, the ancillary use, that's what they've applied for. We take it on merit. There is no division, there's no separate planning. It's not separate as a planning unit, it is all part of one planning unit. It's quite standard practice for a building like that to be an ancillary use. Actually, in the same way that you can have B&B guests in your house, it's in ancillary use. So that's easily conditioned for ancillary use. The dark skies, I did say in my planning report that there were 2 extra roof lights and didn't feel that was any more adverse impact on the AONB or the national landscape. We have, with some planning applications, asked for automatic blinds to be shown on the, we can't really condition it, but we can ask them to be shown on the drawings, and people often are happy to oblige with that. And that does help with the dark skies policy.
Can we condition that the ancillary building isn't sold off to be maybe extended and sold off as a separate dwelling? That remains part of this building or not?
In essence, the condition that's set out at condition 6 on your report pack that effectively prevents it from being occupied as a separate planning unit. If it is occupied as a separate planning unit, there's a breach of planning control, and it will be subject to an enforcement investigation and potential action.
Thank you. I think, Martin, did you want to come in?
Yes, just to answer Councillor's question directly, you wouldn't be able to prevent that through a planning condition. You could use a Section 106 agreement to prevent the fragmentation of the ownership of the site. But as Mr. Trafford had advised you, the condition and just planning control generally, if it moved to a separate dwelling house or a different use without planning permission, that would be an enforcement matter. And as you say, you know, we are somewhat dependent upon complaints coming in. If there is someone nearby who spots something, or as you say, Airbnb is brought to the attention of the enforcement officers, then that can be looked into.
Okay, so
right, thank you.
Sorry, just to come back quickly. So basically, I'd be relying as the council village on the neighbour who I know who's sat over there. Maybe inform me if there is a breach of those. Then, thank you.
Right, Helen.
Is it possible to put in that clause or condition, or to ask the applicant to put in those automatic blinds so that they do not shine upwards and spoil the dark skies in the, what was the AONB and what is now called natural landscapes, I think. That's my first question. And my second question is that if in the unlikely event that this planning committee were to reject this application, what would we then do? How would the enforcement work? Thank you.
I answer the first bit just because I've had a couple of other applications in the national landscape, and we've done it by agreement. We can't condition the use of blinds, but we can discuss it, and usually people are really happy to include them on the drawings. Then they become part of the permission. That's about the best we can do, but it draws people's attention to it. The fact is, there were already 5 allowed without that on the drawings. So, yeah, we'd be asking to change the original planning permission. So, but we could do it for 2. But yeah, but with the second bit, I'll ask Simon.
Okay, thank you, Jane. And I think there's a bit more to come from Simon.
Yeah, so if the members did resolve to decide against the officer recommendation and refuse, you'd effectively be requesting the planning enforcement team to consider whether or not it's expedient and in the public interest to take formal enforcement action against the unauthorised developments being undertaken. And I would suggest that their conclusion probably would reflect your decision as taken. So if you did refuse planning permission, the next step would be to serve an enforcement notice to seek to regularise the unauthorised development that's been undertaken. You should also be aware that if you did refuse, the applicant would have the right to appeal, and probably if they did appeal, we will probably delay taking any further enforcement action until the appeal process had run its course.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Helen. Oh, one more time, Hendrik. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I just like it minuted because I think it's important to do these things. I don't like it when we get these retrospective plans come in, and I do think it's people thumbing their nose at the systems. I just like it minuted that I'm not happy, particularly when it's in a sensitive environment such as the natural landscape, formerly known as the OMB, that these things come in. So if it can be minuted, please. That although I feel we will vote this through, that I'm unhappy that we get these things that seem to thumb the nose at the planning system. Why people can't put in the plans before they build houses, I don't think is the right way to do things.
Right, thank you, Edric. Okay, if nobody else wishes to comment, no, there's a point over there, Martin over there, yeah.
Well, as the first speaker did make a few points, I'm just wondering if the planning officer had a response for some of the things that that speaker might have said. But I mean, it's not critical, but it just I think some strings were raised, which I feel could be answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jane, have you got any more to say? No?
Specifics and we'll answer. I can't remember every detail, so please do if you've got anything.
Chair, I mean, I think, to be honest, the report pack that actually sets out what's been applied for and how it differs from the consented scheme. And again, it's been submitted as a retrospective application. The applicant's taken the risk. You might approve the application, you might refuse it. So again, whilst I totally agree with the Vice Chair's sentiments, technically the applicant hasn't broken the law yet.
Okay, thank you all. So can we have a proposal then, please? Dawn proposing and Phil seconding. Okay, that's to go with officer recommendation.
Yep.
Okay, then that's all hands in the air, all those who are going to go.
I'm actually going to go with it because no, the great scheme of things is not that.
7.
Against? Abstentions?
3.
3. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we will move on now to the Duke of Cumberland Inn, which is at Edward Hill, Holcombe, and I believe Carlton, this is one of yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good. I'm not carrying on.
No, best to wait till Edric gets back. He is the ward councillor. Yeah.
I'm here.
Great, thank you. This application is on a parcel of land just on the outside of the small village of Holcombe. The land is south of the Duke of Cumberland Inn and Oakford Hill. The proposal is on paddock land, or agricultural land there, formation of a new overflow car park to serve the public house, where it's a sort of more of a restaurant type cafe shop now, with associated new access arrangements and extensive landscaping required to screen its impact on the surrounding area. I'll just put you through. So if you see the north, last building on the right there as you come down the road is the premises it will serve, and obviously a very large agricultural field there where all the new development will take place. We move on to the next slide. Right, so it's sloping site, so it slopes in a northerly direction down towards a natural sort of valley before the land rises steeply again as you go up Eggford here, up into the village. So you'll see the to the north of the site is going to be the main parking area, or lay to hardcore with set out parking areas and lighting. There'll be hedgerow all along the northern boundary to hopefully enclose it, and some additional planting. And then to the south, way to the south there, they will have to create a new car parking area. There's an existing field access just to the north there, but visibility of that access is poor, so can't be achieved for safe vehicle access. So a new access arrangement is being achieved further south, as you can see. And then you've got this long meandering drive all the way round to the car park, not really explaining why that is. So it does beg the question what's going to happen in the middle there. But that's not part of this application. Right. So essentially what people would do is they drive into the car park, park up, and then they'll walk through to the pedestrian access there. And then they'll have to walk 100 meters in the northerly direction along an unlit road. Obviously, during the day, not so bad, but at night, quite considerably. There's no public footpath along the road, public pavement along the road, so people would have to be walking in the road. Moving on to the next slide. Gives you an indication of the sloping site. You'll see the little green thing sticking up on the hedgerows, new hedgerow planting. It's going to box off the car park area. You can see it's quite a steep site, so obviously it can be seen from the many vantage points, especially private vantage points from the north, with a lot of the villages looking down onto the site. We move on. Yeah, that's a lighting diagram. This sets out obviously low pole lighting. It's in the interest of bats. The lighting will be kept low stanchions, so it lights up the ground rather than lighting up the sky. Moving on. Okay, so I think the explanation underneath tells you. So on the right-hand picture, a little arrow points to, that's the existing access point into the field there, where the car park will be stationed. And then on the picture on the left shows you looking back down the road, down towards the applicant's premises. Moving on. So there's a clearer picture of the site. You can see it's just open countryside at the moment, fenced off with either hedgerow, the woodland at the far to the west there, or post and rail fencing and hedgerow along the road. Moving on. That's just a picture of the site itself. You can see just grazing land. That's the car park at the pub at the moment. The applicant suggests that obviously at busier times, it's not sufficient to cope with the amount of people that are frequenting the establishment, which is probably true. But that is on, you know, when the premises is very busy. I've been down on site several times, and the car park during lunchtime hours has not been fully used. So that's looking up from the car park, looking back down towards the application site where the car park's going to be, and you can notice the road there. So you notice the windy road that people would have to walk down all the way from, well, beyond where you can see the road going around the corner, all the way down over 100 meters down unlit, especially at night, unlit highway. Move on. Is that it? Right. So obviously you'll see my recommendation is to refuse the application on 3 grounds. First being significant impact it will have on the character and appearance of the countryside, with no overriding benefits that would outweigh the harm. There's a significant issue, highway safety issue, with forcing pedestrians to walk along unlit highway in order to get to the car park from the establishment. And generally speaking, in the amount of parking proposed, which is well over double and a half what they already have, this far exceeds requires. And you'll see the policy suggests that, you know, we should only be providing parking that is necessary to meet the needs of the establishment. So this is well in excess of what the establishment needs. I think there's around about 20 spaces that were approved on the original permission, and this would provide anything between 29 and 34 additional spaces. Okay, that concludes.
All right, thank you, Carlton. Now we move on to the speakers, and we have a few on this this particular one. The first one is Mr. Ian Cole from the solicitors, I believe. But you're also a local resident, is that correct? Oh, it's got here local resident. You're down for 3 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I don't intend to rehash what the officer has said in his report. It seems pointless. However, it probably is worth repeating that the proposed application is in contravention of Development Plans 1, 4, 7, 9, 10, and the National Policy Plan Framework, paragraph 110. We've also seen from the photographs that the development would expose pedestrians to a landscape which is fraught with potential danger, something that the Holcombe Parish development plan recognised for itself some time ago. The road forms a pinch point as it crosses the Mill Stream. It's a 40-mile-an-hour limit. It's approached in either direction via an incline on one side, about 6% on average for about a kilometre, on the other side 2.3, 4%, but with steep shelves. And there is not a good line of sight, which is why the development has to be accessed so far away from the Mill Stream, and why the application would seek to have pedestrians accessing the highway closer to the applicant's site in order to reduce the amount of time that they are spending having to traverse along that highway in darkness without a pavement, having just left an area where there is floodlighting, so that they have even reduced night vision than they may have had once they've had a car's light shines in their face anyway. The reality is that this application presents significant difficulties to anybody who seeks to use it, and it should be dismissed by committee, and I would invite you to do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next person is Nick Cramp. Are you here, Nick?
Nick's on Teams, so he should be.
Teams? Oh, yeah, I can see you.
Hi.
A minute. It's okay, Nick.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a local resident. I've lived in the next door village for 30 years. So I'm very familiar with the establishment and how it's grown over the period. And I'm in favour of the car parking for 3 reasons. First of all, it's a real community asset. Since it's been transformed into a farm shop and cafe, it is busy during the daytime, it's busy at lunchtimes, and it's serving probably half a dozen local villages which don't have a similar facility. So a lot of the extra car parking is actually needed during the daytime. It's not in the evening. Its busiest times are in the mornings, and it's not evening times, which is the main problem with the car parking. That's not when it's at its busiest, because the cafe part of the business is closed. So the only bit in the evening which is open is the pub, where locals walk to and have done for 25 years. So the application, I think, is positive for 3 reasons. First of all, it's a community asset. Secondly, there's approximately 30 local jobs provided by this establishment. Now, in the rural area, they're gold dust. And I'm not saying that we should override planning and health and safety because of that, but it's a consideration that local people need to work somewhere. And finally, I think it's the safest solution. What the people that have spoken so far have failed to add is that at the moment, people park on the road at the bottom where that stream is, and they narrow the road because there's not enough car parking. People just park wherever they can. So it's actually worse at the moment because pedestrians have to walk into the road to get round the parked cars. If you're driving down there, there's cars parked badly, which you don't see until the last minute. So this application isn't ideal, but it's far safer, in my humble opinion, than the current scenario, which just doesn't work. And most of the issues are at lunchtime in daylight hours where the visibility is okay. The car park you saw there is the staff car park, which is adjacent to where this is anyway. So local villagers are overlooking the staff cars being parked there anyway. So the impact on local villagers isn't from a grassland to nothing. They're overlooking cars at the moment anyway. So I know I'm not an expert on the planning laws, but from a local resident who uses the place regularly 3 or 4 times a week and is in contact with lots of people in the same situation, who visits it different times of the year, different times of day, I think it's a valuable local asset. And I think the proposed solution is safer than the status quo. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Next person is Paul Smith, who is also on Teams. Oh, he's here. Okay, I've got a big thing here to read out if you weren't on Teams. Okay, right, carry on, Paul. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Paul Smith and I am a local resident. I've lived in Holcombe with my family for the past 28 years. And I've seen a sad demise in that time in local amenities to the extent that there really are no other amenities in the village whatsoever until the farm shop opened back in 2021. I couldn't even buy a pint of milk or a loaf of bread or anything like that. I firmly believe that the farm shop is an invaluable resource for the village community and local area, given its various functions. As a social hub for the people in the village and local area, providing a place that people can meet together, whether it's over a cup of coffee, have a meal in the restaurant or over a beer in the bar. It is worth mentioning and emphasising that the farm shop has always been very family and children friendly. Also, as an employer of local people, as has already been mentioned, particularly for giving much needed employment opportunities for younger people in the village and the local area. As the only shop in the village where I can actually now buy a pint of milk without getting in the car and driving somewhere to get one. Not to mention having a chat with friends when I want to over a cup of coffee. Also, as a supporter of various events in the village throughout the year, e.g. putting on a Christmas fair only last week, where local small businesses were able to show and sell their wares, and only last Sunday, supporting the annual lighting up of the village Christmas tree and carol singing up at the village playing field. And yes, the mulled wine and the mince pies went down very well. Given the lack of other resources for the community, I really do feel that the council should be doing everything possible to support it and its operation. That said, when a normal car park is full and people choose to park their vehicles on the road on either side of the farm shop, and I would like to emphasise that what I didn't see in the presentation is the road that I walked down from Holcombe village itself, which is to the north of the farm shop, which is a long, narrow road. It's a very straight road where people regularly ignore speed restrictions. There's a concrete works there where large lorries, it's basically halfway between the main part of the village and the farm shop. And there's large concrete lorries that come out there with trailers. They're huge things. And that's where people park on the road. And I can vouch personally that I frequently have to go into the road to avoid cars that are parked on the verge and on the road itself. And I've had to dodge traffic and these huge lorries lots of times. So and I really do feel that wasn't brought out in the earlier presentation because there was nothing on the maps or the photographs that showed the road north of the village, north to the village itself. Just to carry on with what I actually wrote, negotiating these parked cars can be a major hazard, particularly to people like myself and my family.
But you could finish your sentence.
I'll be no more than a minute. It's probably worth pointing out the farm shop is positioned at a bend in the road at the bottom of a particularly long straight stretch of road on the village side, where drivers routinely ignore speed restrictions approaching the farm shop. I personally have had to dodge out of the way of vehicles going up and down the hill when trying to walk around parked vehicles.
Thank you. You will have to wind up now, please.
Okay. To summarise, I believe the farm shop is a valuable resource for the community. However, to be a viable business, it relies on people being able to use their vehicles to get to it. Currently, safe parking can regularly be an issue that Mr. Brett is doing his best to remedy. Allowing the development of further safe off-street parking can only make the whole parking situation at the farm shop safer for both pedestrians and vehicle users alike. I believe that Mr. Brett should be commended for trying to solve this issue, and the council should be doing everything in its power to enable the situation to be resolved satisfactorily and not in effect penalise the business for being successful.
Okay, thank you. You've had longer than you should have had.
Apologise for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next person is Councillor Phil Gate from Holcombe Parish Council, please. And you have 3 minutes, please.
Holcombe Parish Council has three main issues that this application addresses: road safety, the long-term viability of a key village asset, and an aggravation between the landlord and nearby residents caused by the use of the existing car park. The Duke of Cumberland was recently extended and modernised to become the Holcombe Farm Shop and Kitchen. It is now the only pub in Holcombe that is open all week, where people can meet for just a drink and a chat. It has an amazing restaurant and caters for young families with a playground. It's the only shop in Holcombe and provides much needed local employment. It is a great asset to the village. Because of its success, the car park is not large enough to cope with customers, so that cars have to park in the road, which impacts on the highway safety. The proposal before you this afternoon is not perfect, but apart from closing the establishment, it is the only possible solution to this potentially dangerous traffic situation. I'd like to make 3 points. First, there is a need for additional parking. The officer states it's very unlikely that the car park will be used other than weekends. This is not correct. Cars are parked during the week, particularly in the summer, when the open area beside the river is used for food and drink. If you own these premises, would you build an expensive car park that would not be used? Secondly, road safety at present. Cars are currently parked on the road to the north and south of the pub, as in the application. This congestion with customers walking in the road is dangerous. In addition, as mentioned in the letter from one objector, when the car park is full, customers use a limited space to either unload or turn around before parking on the road. This is dangerous. With a new car park, a dedicated drop-off turning area and disabled parking could be provided. Thirdly, highways. The Parish Council has been concerned about the dangerous situation resulting from parking on the roads. They've asked Highways to change the current 40-mile-an-hour limit to the south of the pub to a 30-mile-an-hour limit, not with any success. For this application, Highways have no objection to the vehicle or the pedestrian access to the highways. And you should note that in the officer's summary on page 3, this is wrong. Their objection is to pedestrians using the unlit highway with no pedestrian provision. Providing street lighting would overcome this objection, and pedestrians using the new car park would walk on a road with good visibility and no parked cars. Much safer than the current situation where pedestrians have to walk on a very poorly lit road with parked cars and no pedestrian provision. I would ask you to approve this application, probably with 2 other conditions. One, to get the dedicated drop-off and turning area, and one for street lights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll now call on Dan Foster, please. And 3 minutes, Dan.
Thank you, Jack. Good evening, councillors. Since purchasing the Duke of Cumberland pub, the applicant has invested significantly in the business so that it can continue its role as an important centre of village life as a pub, restaurant, cafe and shop. Planning permission was granted in 2020 for the extension of the pub in this manner, alongside the provision of 2 staff flats. As a thriving community asset, the Duke of Cumberland is bucking the national trend, which, according to CAMRA, sees on average 21 pubs a week closing for business. Currently, the only available off-road parking serving the Duke of Cumberland lies on the opposite side of Edford Hill. This parking area has only 19 spaces, which are frequently oversubscribed with demand from customers, staff and deliveries. On a busy shift, up to 15 people will be working on site, and the premises can accommodate up to 200 customers spread out over 36 tables, both inside and out. Even taking account the winter months and car sharing, it's easy to understand that the existing parking provision is frequently found to be inadequate. The result is that vehicles park on Edward Hill and on the bridge over the Mel Stream. Of course, this means that people already walk in the highway to the Duke of Cumberland, as there are no pavements in this part of the village. The applicant has provided photographs of the existing on-street parking situation to the council, and the officer's report sets out the supported comments of both Holcombe and Stoke St Michael parish councils and 49 others in relation to this matter. This is the only land which is available to the applicant near the pub, which is otherwise surrounded by neighbouring properties on 3 sides and bordered by the Mel Stream to the south. If the application is refused, then the current status quo will remain, and vehicles will have to continue to park on the highway when the existing car park is full, and people will still walk in the road to the pub. Alternatively, if permission is granted for the new car park, then cars will no longer need to park in an ad hoc fashion or cause congestion in the existing car park, which is a frustration to some neighbours. The pedestrian entrance to the new car park is 95 metres from the main entrance to the Duke of Cumberland, and in our view, there will be no increase in the number of people walking the road from the new car park in comparison with the existing situation. In design terms, the new car park is the minimum size necessary for it to have a practical function, and its layout is dictated by the topography of the land. To minimise the landscape impact, it is proposed to provide replacement hedgerow planting at a ratio exceeding 2:1, alongside native tree planting and a lighting scheme designed by a specialist lighting consultant. The Highway Authority consider that the vehicular access to the new car park will be safe. There is no adverse ecology impacts, and the plan officer raises no concerns on the impact of neighbour amenity. In summary, the choice for this application is quite stark. Either the Duke of Cumberland will continue to operate as it stands today, so when the existing car park is full, people will have to park in the highway in an ad hoc fashion, which is problematic locally. Alternatively, the applicant has proactively offered to remedy the issue by creating a new car park, which is supported by both Stoke St Michael and Holcombe parish councils and many others. We hope the planning committee will recognise these overriding benefits too and approve the application this afternoon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Very good. Okay, the next person will be, I think Edric. You're the councillor for that area, I believe.
Indeed, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. This is a difficult one because I've heard both sides of the story, and I'm afraid I'm in agreement with the officers on this. When I view the site, I just don't think it's safe. So whilst I want a business to thrive, I just can't approve something which puts pedestrians at danger when they walk down the road. I'm really sorry on this, but I have to go with the officers' recommendation to refuse it based on the safety. I've done site visits, I know the area well, and when people make comments about concrete lorries and speeding vehicles coming down the hill, well, yeah, they do. And then they'll go back up the hill out the village their way past all pedestrians on a very narrow stretch of road coming out from a car park to walk to the pub. So I'm really sorry, Toby, but I'm in agreement with the officers on this one.
Okay, thank you, Edric. I will point out that Councillor Robbins unfortunately is unwell today, who is the other councillor for the area, and isn't here to give his opinion. Okay, Phil.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to correct what you've just said. Myself and Barry are actually the divisional councillors for this actual site.
Oh, I apologise.
We're not the councillors for the Duke of Cumberland, but the car park is in our division. We are the other side of the river. We have not been consulted on this at all. So that's mistake number one. In my previous role as the ward member for Holcombe, as amended district council, I had several meetings with Highways and with Simon and other people about this. And we came up with ideas and thoughts to how we could get around it to a degree. The landlord actually found a bit of land just up the road where he was parking his cars, and then decided to put an enforcement on that. This guy has tried extremely hard to get a solution to a massive problem. Edric said people will be walking in the road if they get this car park. They're already walking in the road every weekend, nearly every day of the week, because they have to walk in the middle of the road because the cars are parked on the side of the road. It's that simple. I came past there today at lunchtime, cars parked on the road. I had to stop on the bridge because the concrete lorry with a load of concrete slabs was coming down. We both had to back to get round. Right outside the pub by the car park, which is the opposite side of the road anyway, so people are crossing the road. The other thing is the public footpath crosses the road just up by the car park, so there are people walking in the road. If you're not aware, the Cookswood development is now taking build is at pace at the moment. That's going to be another 146 houses just up the road. They're all going to walk down to this pub. So, yes, it's not ideal. But first of all, we could change the speed limit of the road. We managed to do it in Lyon Mendip in this meeting, to my disgrace, a few months ago. So why can't it be done in Holcombe? It was the highways lady was here in the room that day and said, we can do that. It's still not been done 6 months on. So we could change the speed of the road. We could light the road. We could make it safe. Just one further question. On page 256 of the notes, it says when this planning application was approved in 2020, it was calculated from national and local plan policy, the number of car parking spaces needed for this enterprise. The enterprise was a pub. It then changed to a pub, a restaurant, a microbrewery, and a farm shop. Can I ask the planning officer how he calculated that number? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Phil. And Carlton, you've been asked directly for an answer.
I think you'll find that the applicant himself came up with that calculation when he applied for the change of use.
Okay, thank you. Martin, the legal man, would like to come in a moment.
Yeah, just in relation to changing the speed limit. You recall, members, that the highway officer on the earlier application where that came up made it clear that applying for a TRO was a separate process, not guaranteed the outcome of that. It's not something that you can condition as part of granting permission if that's you're so minded to do so. And neither, I think, is street lighting. Lighting on the public highway would again be a matter for the highway authority. And unless the planning officers are disagreeing with me, I don't think that's something we could condition as part of granting planning permission for this scheme.
Chair, we have John Fellingham online, if you wanted to pull him in, the highways officer.
Okay, if John would like to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Evening committee. John Fellingham, Service Manager for Highways Development Management at the Council, obviously sitting in for Emma, who's unfortunately away. In answer to that last question in relation to street lighting, I would agree with Martin that that would be something that would have to be dealt with and paid for by a developer as part of their scheme. It's not something that the Highway Authority would be able to fund and deliver. There would also be question marks in terms of delivery of that, extent of spacing and also dark spots that lighting does create. That, as it was alluded to in one of the speakers said earlier, lighting does have the ability of creating darker areas in and around the location. In relation to the question about the extension of the speed limit, as Martin alluded to, that is related to a TRO, traffic regulation order, for those that weren't familiar with the abbreviation. And that would be a separate legal process that would have to go through. And there's no guarantees that that would be permitted. Now, obviously, for our point of view, we've obviously, as you know, recommended recommend a refusal of this application, because obviously we have concerns that although we accept that at the present time there is people that do walk on the highway, that's been mentioned by a number of speakers this afternoon, but that would be exacerbated by if members were to approve this application. As has been stated, the car park would then lead to members of the public walking on a highway which is at a 40-mile-an-hour road. Vehicle speeds, anecdotally has been said in the chamber today, are actually faster along that section of road with no footway, no street lighting. The road itself has got a bends in it, sinuous in nature. All those matters together relate in significant highway safety concern for the Highway Authority, and thus why we raise recommending that this scheme is refused by the members. Thank you, Chair.
Information. I'm going to go to Barry because I'm going to let Barry go first because, contrary which I didn't know, you are the ward member for this area. Thank you.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. What the gentleman from Highways has just described is a situation at Lyon Mendip. He didn't mention Lyon Mendip, but the traffic situation over there is as bad, if not worse, than they are disagreeing with here. And if we can get away with what they got away with at Lyon Mendip because they thought it was a good idea, I don't see why this is any worse, and we can't approve this scheme and give this local asset a bit of a boost. Whether the entrance is in the right place to the car park, I'm not sure, having looked at the site, but that's neither here nor there. In principle, I think this application should be approved. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Barry. Benty, I think you wish to comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to remind those who were Mendip District Councillor and can go back to 2011, we have been bombarded with remembering the rural areas. Remember the high level of isolations for people living in the rural areas, that there were no decent connecting buses, or they could join a taxi and then come to Shepton Mallet Market on a Friday to do their shopping. I am pleased to see that there is actually within walking distance, although it may be dangerous, but all roads are dangerous when it comes to that, and you are a person and there's a great big lorry coming. I really and truly think that this here is a shame, because the order came from very high up that we had to look at it and we had to do everything we could to help areas. And now we are sitting here being asked to work directly against people. And I think it's shocking. I think it's wonderful that a person is running a business so the villagers can come in and shop. And I think it's wonderful that 30 people has got a job, because there's far too many unemployed people around here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Benty. Much appreciated. Helen.
Yeah, thank you. My concerns about this are that it just seems like a really huge field. It's massive. It's bigger than the area of the village, and I don't really understand. Sorry? If you look at the first map.
Yeah, it's wrong somewhere.
Right, okay. Can we see the first map? Pardon? No, sorry. I mean that little bit, the little hamlet now at the bottom where the Cumberland Inn is. Can we see the map again, please? What I don't understand is that one of the comments in here is that it's sort of like saying a hammer to crack a nut, really. It's kind of saying that 29 spaces are not extra, are not needed, that it's too big. And what I don't understand is why the red line of the site goes all the way down there. Well, you've explained that it's to do with access. So they're going to come in, presumably it's a one-way system, they're going to come in at the bottom there and then drive all the way up, and then they can park in that area that's going to be hopefully permeable paving of some sort, right? And that is what, about a fifth or a quarter of the field? It just seems to me to be, I can't understand why it has to be so big. When we looked at something earlier, the Wrangles, we saw the red line going down the road and then going around the Wrangles, if you see what I mean. It didn't encompass this huge amount. So I don't understand why the red line doesn't go down either side of that driveway. So what I'm concerned about is the white space in the middle there. What's going to happen to that? Now, there's an implication in here, which I don't really quite understand, that somebody's asked for allotments. And sure there will be land allocated for village allotments, as this was not shown on the plan. So I just wanted to ask the officer, you know, if we approve this today, what is going to happen to that white patch of land? Could that then be more overflow car parking? Could it be allotments? Could it be for community use? Could it be handed over to the community? Because I'm very concerned about the size of this, given the, if you look at the original car park. Thank you.
Do you have a answer or not really?
The honest answer, Chairman, is we don't know. No, doesn't suggest that there's going to be any change of use on that specific island of land within the site.
So if we were to approve this today, could we put a condition on that land is not to be developed or go to hard standing or anything like that? We can't put that condition on.
No, we have a right to develop any land in the country.
Okay, without planning permission.
Well, no, nobody builds without planning permission.
Okay,
do that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Martin, you'd like to come in quickly?
Sorry, Chair, just to draw members' attention to the third reason for refusal that's being recommended, which is the scale of the parking proposed is disproportionate to the needs of the premises.
But that is kind of what I'm saying, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the issue of what might go in that white bit is not a matter for you to consider. You're looking at the application before you as it is, but the officer's view is that the scale of the parking you see on the plan there is disproportionate.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you, Martin. I'm going to bring in Claire again a minute. The rest of you wait because she hasn't spoken yet and she wanted to speak.
Keep adding to what I'm going to say. So pubs normally come to planning, don't they? Because they're going to be closed and turned into housing. So we've got a different scenario here. Pub come in because they're thriving and they're thinking about their customers and their parking. I live in a small village and our pub has a problem with parking, and so it's solved with cars parking on pavements. And I think it does deter people when they see a pub and they can't park and they won't, so it will affect a business. So what I'm asking myself is, what are they supposed to do in this catch-22? And what happens if we refuse this planning to this business, to pubs that are closing? Someone will know in this room how many pubs are closing. The stats are out there. There are a lot of pubs closing. It's businesses, it's difficult to be trading at the moment in the current economic conditions. So Highways said that we would exacerbate the problem if we allow this planning application to go through, and talked about it very eloquently and almost passionately about the safety. But what's happening now, you know, so what are we doing now about the safety of people that are walking along there? If I was the owner of this, there are ways you could offer customers, you know, visibility jackets, or the things you can put on, or you can offer them while they're walking. There are torches or somebody supervising people walking. So something. So let's find a solution. Let's just think, what happens if we refuse this application? What happens to the current safety? What are we doing as a council about the current safety situation? That's what I feel quite concerned about, even though that's not our remit here. But they're in a catch-22. What they're supposed to do, and like I say, let's encourage. I want to see approval of this application. So I support pubs in our rural communities.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Just come back on that, Chair.
You can come back. Yeah.
It's just see the difference between two situations where people walk on the road. The current situation is that people are doing it off their own back, right? If we approve the application, we're actually forcing people to walk on the highway, right, as a council, okay?
Okay, Claire.
People are people, aren't they? So whether they're doing it, they're people
you know, the first scenario is people walking on the road. The second scenario is people walking on the road. One person walks on the road or 10 person walks on the road and it's a risk. That's one person too many. So there's an issue anyway. So there needs to be solutions about making it safe on the road. That's the issue. And I would say to the pub, you know, like put those, you know, those light illuminated things on people, offer it to people, you know, have there is a way, and other pubs are in the same position. So when they're parking in my local pub and they're on the pavements and people are crossing the road and it's a bend, I mean, it's like, this is something I just don't know what they're supposed to do. They want to sustain themselves as a business, and many pubs are closing in our local rural areas. So I just don't. If we refuse this, what are we saying? What are we saying to this pub and the pub's future?
Thank you, Claire. I'm going to come back round now. I've got 4 people who wish to speak, and that'll be it. Then we will move on.
Chair. John Fellingham has his hand up. I don't know if you want to bring him back in or not.
Yeah, go on then.
Thank you, Chair. Just on that last point, just to expand on what the planning officer was saying, at the present time when people are parking up on the carriageway, they're making an own. Sorry, my mic was up. Apologies. Just coming back on that last point, at the present time, and just expanding on that, the planning office, what the planning officer is saying, at the present time, people park on the highway and they make a risk assessment based on their own needs to park there, and they take that risk themselves. By approving this application, you're in effect saying that this car park is acceptable to be used, and by effect, you're saying that walking along the road is acceptable. What we're saying is the highway authority that actually no, that isn't acceptable. We accept the fact that there is a status quo that currently occurs. Whether that I agree with it or not, that's the current state of play. But what we are here to do, and what the members are here to vote on, is what is in front of them. And this would, as I've said before, will lead to an increase in vehicles using that car park, which in turn will lead to visitors walking along that section of carriageway in some situations when it's dark and unlit, and it will cause an extra highway safety conflict between vehicles and pedestrians. So I appreciate the discussion that's been had in relation to what's currently there and what currently isn't. It's just to get that clear definition that if this is approved by members, what they're doing is giving an example to say that this is a scheme is acceptable, and we're accepting the fact that it is okay for pedestrians to walk on that carriageway along that section of road to this location. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, we're going to go back round to people who wanted to speak. I've got you all in my mind. First one is Edric, quickly.
Well, I won't be quickly, Chair, because you've given plenty of people. This doesn't concern as much me ample opportunity to speak, for one. First of all, I fully support the business. I fully support having a car safety, needs a footpath down the side. As has been said before, if we enable people to walk to the pub with their backs to traffic rather than walking facing oncoming traffic, which we'll do, it just isn't safe, and we will have enabled it. It's really difficult being a division member when you are against somebody who runs a business you've spoken to, but I need I'm going to use the word, I need the balls to go with the officers on this one, because I can see he's probably going to go against me, that I don't think it's safe enough. I've got nothing against Toby. I use his pub. I've got nothing against the parish council. But I just currently don't think this is a safe option. Of course, I support rural businesses. I grew up in a rural area and I represent 11 rural parishes, but this isn't currently safe. If we chuck people out of a car park onto that road, walking with their backs to traffic, albeit they're going to the pub before they've had a drink, it's just not safe. If they could find a pathway down the verge, I know that's been looked into. I don't think that's possible at the moment. I've got no issue with the size of the car park or any future use of the field. It's just that egress onto that road, I currently don't think it's safe, and that's why I can't vote for it.
Okay, thank you, Edric. Next one, I think, is Barry. No, Phil.
Just a couple of points I want to pick up on. First, Claire said in her village they got pavements. There's no pavements at all in Holcombe, going north, south, west or east. No pavements at all. The cars park on the side of the road, and when you get out the car, you've got to walk in the middle of the road. I've gone past that pub when there's been more than 40 cars in the road, not to mention the number in the car park. And you've got the Arctic lorries, which somebody mentioned, I think it might have been Mr. Smith, going in and out of the concrete works. And some of the busiest times that this pub has is at lunchtime. It's not evenings. In fact, if you go past there at 8 o'clock at night, it's very often shutting up. And at 9 o'clock, it is shut. So we're talking about a lot of nonsense about a few winter nights, but actually most of the time it's open, it's in the daytime and in the summer nights when it's light. So I think all what we've been talking about is a load of nonsense, and I think we should get on and vote on this, and I propose that we approve this application opposite to officer recommendation.
Thank you, Phil. We've got one more comment, I believe. Oh, Martin wants to come in. I'll take the comment first, Helen.
I'm still concerned about the, I suppose it's kind of urbanisation of the countryside, really, by having this parking area and the area to the south of it. Where if we were to have a housing estate in Holkham, what we would be talking about, there would be a whole load of stuff from highways about predicted traffic flows and all the rest of it. What I'd like to do is obviously support rural businesses, but I do think that if rural businesses are going to expand and they think they're going to be successful, they need to think ahead, and perhaps they did. You talked about a field north of the area for parking, and it should have sort of been addressed before, really. And it seems to me that what we're trying to do is sort of sort out a problem that's a result of their own success, but at the same time, I'm sorry, I've completely lost my point. All right, sorry. It's about individual choice. Sorry, I wanted to go back to the point that that Edric was saying, is that if we put it here, we could actually be making the road more dangerous, and we're facilitating it. And I think that for that reason, I'm probably going to vote against it.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Okay, Martin, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it's just in relation to the proposal to approve the application. Just to remind members of the reasons that the officer is putting forward for refusal, and perhaps when giving reasons why the application is considered acceptable, to address these, and I'll summarise them. One is that in the officer's view, the development would be harmful to the character and appearance of the rural landscape. Secondly, that the location of the car park would result in intensification of pedestrian use along not a safe or suitable access, according to the Highway Authority and the planning officer. And thirdly, rather, the scale of the proposed parking is disproportionate to the needs of the premises. So if members can, when they do put the proposal forward or second it, could just address those reasons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Last comment from you, Claire.
It's a car park to meet demand. So not being appropriate for the landscape, it's a pub with a car park. Are we asking the pub not to have the demand? I think the road safety issue's there anyway, and I think we heard from people that live there that told us that it was there anyway. There's a bigger issue that's beyond here. I feel uncomfortable saying this, and I feel that we're almost being told if we vote in favour of this planning application, we're voting for people to be harmed on the road, and that feels very, very uncomfortable, actually, because of course we're not doing that at all. I just think this is a real catch-22, quite a difficult one, really, probably one of the hardest applications we've had. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Claire.
Rural economy. I mean, it's the rural economy.
Yeah.
That people do drive to pubs, or else there's no. Unfortunately, our public transport is not good enough in the rural areas.
Right, thank you. Phil, you've proposed. You'll have to give your reasons, and also we haven't got a seconder for you yet. Oh, Benty is seconding. Okay.
Sorry, I had it on when I shouldn't have. That's why that was. I think the reasons is like Claire said, we need to support rural industries. There's no buses. You've got to go there by car. Although a lot of people are walking from Stoke St Michael, there are people walking from Ham, there are people walking from Coalford along the footpaths. And as I said, Cookswood Developments is ongoing. People are starting to moving in. They're going to be walking down that road because they're not going to want to drive up and down the road, drink and drive. So there's going to be more people walking the road. And if we've got cars parked on the side of the road, it's going to be worse. And I do not believe that this is inappropriate size. I think this if it was allowed, would be a lot more people going there than there's going there now, because they're being put off by having to park in the road. So I think we can reverse that reason round the opposite way. The other reason, the third reason. Well, refusal.
Landscape harm.
Yeah. I think the benefits outweigh the harm. Benefits of having safer parking outweighs the harm. Those are my reasons.
Okay, Phil, thanks for that. And okay, so we're going to go to a vote. And what we will be voting on is Phil's recommendation that we approve contrary to officer recommendation. So let's get straight to it. All those in favour of Phil's recommendation? Okay. All those against? And abstentions? 1. Okay, so it's carried.
Chairman, again, could we ask that conditions be delegated to officers in consultation with the chair and vice chair?
Absolutely, that's fine by me. Okay, we've got to move on to our next one, which is...
Excuse me, may I just interrupt? It's Helen here. Do we need to vote to extend the meeting beyond the 3 hours? No, thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to another one of Carton's, which is Falconshire Lane, Trellick Hill, and that's in Frome, or on the outskirts of Frome, really Nunny, basically, just off from Nunny. So, Carton, carry ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for a small infill plot in Truddockshill. The application is for outline planning permission with some matters reserved for the erection of one single-storey dwelling house. Details of access, landscaping, layout and scale. So we only essentially bit missing is the appearance of the development. So what type dwelling will look like. If we have a look at the application site. Right. So it's situated in quite the historic core, just around the corner from the pub, and it shares a boundary with the village hall there to the north. And the land currently forms part of the garden of Holmley, which wraps around Snowdrop Cottage there. So that's 2 quite large semi-detached properties that had gardens. For some reason, Holmley has a garden that wraps all the way around. Access to the site is via a private lane that leads up to the village hall, which is further up there. So we've got an existing access arrangement to the site, which currently supports a double garage building. There is also parking at Holmley. If you look in the blue land, you'll see the parking arrangement at the front of the property there. The application is to knock down that garage building, clear the site and erect a single-storey dwelling. So the left is the current situation layout, and then you'll see a large hatched area there. Could be the footprint of the building. So that's what one of the things we'll be approving, that as the footprint, bigger and change of use of the land around it. Access to the site, which is existing, and you can see that 3 parking spaces can easily be achieved. Essentially, you probably wouldn't need any more than 2. This is the site at the moment. You'll see the at the bottom will show you looking from the back forward and looking from the road back into the site. Cool. There you go. So this is looking from the access road that leads up to the village hall. You can see the little garage there, and looking towards the back of the site. There you go. So this is a indicative layout of that been provided to show that you could have small 2 or even 3 bedroom, more likely 2 bedroom cottage, single story within the confines of the footprint as proposed. Okay, there were one of the key concerns, obviously, for village is proximity right adjacent to the village hall. With regard to the noise and how that the development of the site might prejudice the use of that village hall in the future. Environmental Protection Officer has raised no concerns. There's never been any objections from other neighbouring properties who live in immediate vicinity of the village hall. They don't generally have a lot of events, but should they have events every day of the week, they're restricted by their license, so they can't extend much more beyond midnight, except the exception of New Year. So what we're suggesting is that it's probably ideal to have an acoustic fence along that boundary and along the boundary with the playground to the rear of the village hall as well. But there's an existing situation with garden already being adjacent to that play area. Nobody's ever raised any concerns with regard to noise, etc. Another key concern for residents in the area is obviously people backing out from those parking spaces onto that private lane. Obviously, this is an existing situation. That private lane also supports a public right of way, but the current situation is that cars do back out at the moment, and so there's no change in the any significant change in the level of traffic generated from the proposal. So we're recommending an application for approval with the condition, and obviously Triddock Hill doesn't have a development limit, so this would be a departure from our local plan policy. But in that respect, we're considering that there's no significant harm identified with bringing forward the development that would outweigh significantly demonstrably outweigh unsustainable location. Therefore, not having access to a significant amount of services and facilities or bus routes, etc. But it does have a pub, does have a church, and it does have a village. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Carlton. For public speakers, we have Mr. Matthew Brown, please. And you have 3 minutes, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Brown, the next door neighbour to the proposed development. I also represent other villagers who have objected to the application. It is our position that the application should be refused due to its negative impact on community amenity, amongst other issues as specified on the many registered objections. Proposed site directly adjoins the children's play park. Many parents have objected to the application with valid concerns regarding their children's ongoing use of the park. Village Hall Committee state that, quote, a new dwelling on the proposed site would potentially negatively impact the running of the hall, unquote. Parish Council anticipates the proposed developments, quote, potential to disrupt a vital community asset from functioning, unquote. New occupiers would have the ability to object to licenses and performances. Why should a single new dwelling be permitted when it would compromise the operation of the village's only community facilities? With no designated turning space provided, vehicles exiting the site would reverse onto the public footpath at a blind spot. Page 6 of the planning officer's report states that access would be as existing, but this is not correct. 3 proposed parking spaces situated side by side would span the breadth of the site's western border, while the present exit is suitable for only 1 vehicle and not located at the blind spot. The Parish Council recorded, quote, multiple expressions of concern, unquote, regarding the safety of children when voting unanimously to refuse the original application, noting that these concerns and all others remained when voting unanimously to refuse the amended application. The proposed flattening of the existing protecting earth bank, the felling of a mature native tree, also of local historical value, potentially increase the risk of flooding to the site and to my property, an issue which is incorrectly stated as low risk at page 7 of the planning officer's report. Photographs illustrating the typical flows of floodwater over the full width of the access lane are included on page 5 of the report of 19th of July from Daniel Foster. The Environment Agency's surface water flood risk map shows medium and high risk of flooding at and around the site. Video evidence of 4 of the further floods on the lane between August and December this year, including a flooding incident following yesterday's heavy rainfall, all showing deep, fast-flowing streams of water, is available to support this and has been submitted to the council portal. The applicant's preliminary ecology appraisal at page 12 specifies that, quote, all 4 boundary hedgerows are to be entirely retained, unquote. Condition at page 10 of the planning officer's report that a 2-metre high acoustic fence be erected along the boundary with the village hall would not appear to allow for this. Trollocshill is neither a primary nor a secondary village, so not a sustainable location for such developments. No bus, no employment, no shop, no school, and no church, contrary to the planning officer's report at page 5. Everywhere needs to be driven to. I trust the committee will take full account of the objections from the Parish Council, the Village Hall Committee, from villages, and as included in the Foster Salmon report, and refuse the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Claire Midgley-Jewett, is it? Yeah. Hey. You have 3 minutes as well, please, Claire.
Thank you for allowing me to address the committee today. My name's Claire Midgley-Jewett and I'm a member of the group which built the community garden in Trollocshill, which is the immediate neighbour to this development. It's also known as Trollocshill Playground, so we use the 2 terms interchangeably. It took over 25 years of campaigning and fundraising to get the garden built. It was opened in 2015 with the very kind support of Mendip Council, who saw the benefit in a space that would combat isolation in our small, unsustainable rural community. The children of our parish are scattered to more than 7 different schools. The village hall and community garden are the only places for them to meet up and play safely together without having to get into a car. And we're going to keep repeating the phrase, sorry, Trollocshill is not a sustainable village. There's no bus service, taxis are rare and they're really expensive. The only amenities we have are this playground and the village hall right next to it and the pub. If this planning application is allowed, it will restrict the amenity of the playground and village hall in several ways. Firstly, the edge of the proposed dwelling appears to be less than 3 metres from the boundary of the playground. There'll be an obvious noise disturbance in both directions. So you can imagine you're having a relaxing time on the weekend, you're watching a movie, nice action movie, the window's open. Kids in the playground can hear whatever you're watching, be that appropriate or otherwise. And it goes the other way around. You're going to get front row seats to listening to children playing using their outdoor voices. For this reason, any attempts to expand and upgrade the playground in the future, which we would very much like, would likely be objected to by the occupiers of this property. The playground also has an active right of access across the proposed site so that we're not reliant on the goodwill of a local landowner to access the playground. This access was granted when the land the community garden occupies was kindly donated to us by the previous owners of Homely. This right of access isn't shown on the plans and appears to cut across the parking spaces and one corner of the building. The wildlife of the garden, which includes bats, hedgehogs and nesting birds, is enhanced and to a great degree supported by the thick plantings which the planning officer's report suggests be replaced with an acoustic fence. The community garden and the village hall work together to host numerous community events throughout the year, and there is a real concern, a real fear in the parish that this property, if allowed, will limit that function, leaving us no space to gather that does not require the use of multiple private vehicles or the purchase of food and drink. Users of the garden have indicated that they'd be put off by the proximity of the dwelling. If use of the community garden drops, feelings of isolation will rise. It surely cannot be the intent of this committee and these officers that planning permission of an unsuitable development on a site that everyone agrees is unsustainable is approved purely because successive central policies have failed our councils in the provision of adequate housing stock. Acoustic fencing will not stop this dwelling being frequently and significantly disturbed by community events. And it's used for band practice twice a week. My teenagers aren't good. They will have an interest and a right to limit the community's ability to gather and bond. Building a resilient community takes time and effort. It's a fragile thing that takes very little to disrupt. Please don't let this happen. For these reasons, we appreciate your support in rejecting this application. I'm hugely grateful for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. We'll meet next, Dan. Please, Mr. Foster. 3 minutes again.
I'm back. Good afternoon. My name's Dan Foster. I'm a chartered town planner. I'm retained by Mr. and Mrs. Brown, who live at Snowdrop Cottage, which is the property immediately adjacent to this site. Mr. Brown has already addressed the committee, but I would like to take the opportunity to amplify some of the main planning objections. The council's local plan sets out a clear strategy for the delivery of new housing, namely that it should be located within the most sustainable towns and villages which have a range of key services and facilities. Truddock's Hill is not a village listed in the local plan as a suitable location for new housing, and so it has no development limit at all. The village has a pub and a village hall. It has no shop, school or any public transport provision. The church referred to in the officer report is a chapel which is not in use. In light of the lack of services, future occupants of the new dwelling will be entirely reliant on private cars for their day-to-day needs, including shopping, employment, healthcare and education. The former Mendip District Council declared a climate emergency in 2019, and granting planning permission for a dwelling here will clearly be contrary to the aims of minimising carbon emissions. The location of the development is contrary to core policies 1 and 2 of the local plan, and irrespective of the council's housing land supply position, this is a strong reason for refusing planning permission. Moving on, when the council's environmental protection officer originally commented on this application, he said the following, and I quote verbatim, "Upon review, it has been apparent that this development has the potential for serious amenity conflict with the village hall, and due to the proximity, it will be very difficult to mitigate. Therefore, considering the agent of change principle, environmental protection would recommend refusal of this application." This objection has since been retracted, but the only mitigation being offered is the erection of an acoustic fence on the boundary. It is, however, far from clear how a 2-metre fence will protect the amenity of future residents from potentially noisy activities such as parties at the village hall, which is less than 5 metres from the boundary, which is closer than any other existing neighbour. It would be most regrettable if the use of the village hall, which is licensed until midnight, was curtailed in the future because of complaints by the occupiers of the new dwelling. This is a significant concern shared by the parish council and others. We would also note the council's own ecology survey recommends the retention of existing hedgerows, which are likely to be used by commuting backs, which is incompatible with the requirement for an acoustic fence. Furthermore, at this outline stage, the applicant is requesting details of the landscaping of the site be approved, yet the submitted plans show no real detail of any landscaping, such as planting specifications or the extent of proposed hard surfacing. There is no suggested condition to secure these details either. Finally, contrary to the planning officer's report, the Environment Agency's surface water flood risk map shows that part of the site and all of the adjoining access are at medium and high risk of surface water flooding. Mr. Brown's explained to you that that actually occurred yesterday again, and we've given photographic evidence to the council of that. No detailed analysis of flood risk has been undertaken, and indeed no planning conditions are recommended to deal with this matter. In our view, issue has not been properly addressed. In summary, there are good reasons for the council to refuse this application, not least because the development is in an unsustainable location. And it would conflict with the village hall and because of the unresolved flood risk issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. That's good. Right, and I'm just looking here. Do we have Mr. Chris Kenyon here from Tradix Hill? Yeah.
Indeed.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair.
You have 3 minutes as well.
Thank you for giving me the opportunities to speak, although in fact I think more or less everything has been put before you. I'm Chris Kenyon, I'm a parish councillor. We have voted as a parish council on this a couple of times previously, and we don't feel that the current application changes our objections. We unanimously recommend refusal in spite of the officer's recommendation of approval. And the main reason, as has been said, is that we enjoy having noise in the village hall when we like to have noise in the village hall up until midnight and until 1 o'clock on New Year's. Many residents in the village appreciate that freedom. I mean, the village hall, it's actually a Nissen hut, came from Blandford. In 1972, volunteers acquired it and brought it up to Tradix Hill. Volunteers erected it, and it was opened in 1974. So it's a wooden structure. It does have double glazing, but it's not exactly acoustically very. It lets sound leak out. It was sited, I'm sure, purposely in a field on the edge of the village. At the end of a private road where, and I think a couple of things with the officer. I suspect, I hope that access to a new dwelling on this private road is approved by the owners of the private road. I'm not sure of the rights of way on that private road, and I'm not sure of anyone I know who is sure of the rights of way for a new development on that private road. Currently, its access is for Holmley, a garage owned by Holmley. When the village hall was sited and erected in that field, it was on the edge of the village, and you can see that the cottage, the Snowdrop and Corbière cottages are around 25 metres away from the village hall. What we're proposing is to plonk something 6 metres away from the village hall, which was against the original idea of the villagers who put the hall there. It's only 50 years ago now. So we feel that the facilities are in grave jeopardy. What can be held there, that the residents of this new building, over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, have the ability to complain about noise in the village hall and to therefore restrict our licensing hours. We can't do anything about that. Noise is going to be an issue for the residents of this new property. And the second main point is that they will be looking in the northeast at children playing in the playground. A recent survey we did in the village showed at least 29 households use the playground
Time is up, I'm afraid.
regularly. So in summary, we feel that the adverse impact of this development on the residents of Tradix Hill community will significantly outweigh any benefit to the applicant or to the housing or to the county in terms of solving the housing crisis. Very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm just checking here. We have nobody else on there. So the divisional councillors will be Barry and Phil. So Barry, then, I'll get you first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those of the committee that worry about sustainability, this particular building is more than 2 miles away from the nearest main road. No buses, there's really nothing goes through apart from private cars. So those of us who are concerned about the use of private cars, this should be a no-no. Apart from that, people will move into this house if it's sanctioned, and after a while they will complain about noise from the village hall. They will complain about traffic to the village hall, up and past their entrance all the time. But they're likely to. I can't say they will. You know the way these things go. We see it with the big industrial units around us at the moment, that a factory gets built, a quarry gets extended, and the first people to complain are the people who came in 2-3 years ago and think that this development or this quarry, which might have been there for 100 years, should now be closed down because it annoys them. So I think there is a danger to the village hall from the occupants of this house. And the village hall, which has gone on for, I think the last gentleman said 50 years, it's established a pattern. It can do various things. It allows children out into what might be called a safe area. And I don't think it's particularly pleasant to think what could happen to children from people overlooking and watching and listening. You don't want people complaining about children doing whatever they do. So I think that's a point that the village hall needs to be protected, and building something so close to it doesn't protect it. And probably why there have not been a lot of instances of complaints to the village hall, because the house that's going to be knocked down is probably 25 metres away, and the one that's going to be built will end up being 5 metres away. So that's probably why there are no complaints of any significance that we've had at the moment. The vehicle parking looks to be an absolute nightmare. They have to drive completely over the track of the lane to get in. They cannot possibly turn on the site as it's proposed to make a safe exit from it when they're going back out again. So they have to reverse into the gateway that's the entrance to the village hall, and then they drive up that particular lane. And the construction phase, I could see that being an absolute nightmare. You know what a construction site is like. There are concrete lorries, there are people delivering this, there are scaffolders. Oh, it'll only be a minute. People want to get about their daily lives without having to accommodate a construction site next door to the village hall. So I think those are my main concerns, and I would suggest that we vote against the officer's recommendation. Sorry, Carlton, I like voting with the planning officer, but not this one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Barry. We're gonna have to restrict to about one go per person, because we, as you know, we have to try and finish by 6 o'clock, and we have one more to go. About 15:15. We've got a little bit of leeway. Okay, Phil.
I'll be quick because Barry said most of it. Yeah, I can see traffic being a problem, especially people leaving the village hall late at night, you know, car after car. Not to mention the noise coming out of the village hall when there's an event going on. And I know there have been noisy events going on. I know the young farmers have been banned from the village hall at times for their events, as we might say. I'd also like to support Claire about the playground, because I did support Claire years ago with money for that playground. And it is close, it is special, it's in a special place, it's good for the village, and to nonsense. So I fully support the parish council, and I'll let somebody else speak.
Thank you, Phil. Anybody else? Yes, Helen?
Just in terms of reasons for refusal, are we going to say 1, sustainable development, 2, dangerous, reversing onto the road? I'd like to add possibilities of flooding, loss of hedgerow, and also I'm concerned about the height being 6 metres. I think this room is about 6 metres, and it's supposed to be a bungalow. So I was also concerned about the height of it. So I'd like to support the refusal as well.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Yeah, with regard to those 4, I would say obviously sustainability and height are welcome to the roads. not a highway. You can't refuse it backing onto not a highway. You can't. I would suggest that you avoid going down that route, and also the flooding side of things. There might be the odd occasion where the road floods, happens outside my house every time it rains. In the flood zone 1, okay? That would be a poor reason for refusal.
Okay, can I come back, please? Yeah.
Sure, yeah, sure.
Okay, well, I mean, it's up to the proposer and the seconder to do this, but we could also add, was it loss of amenity with regards to the village hall and the playground? Would that be grounds for refusal? All right, and what about loss of hedgerow?
Simon, somebody like to?
Yeah, I think I was just about to, obviously, a lot of the comments that were made by the public speakers and by councillors that have spoken are that, Councillor Kay, that the impact on the amenities of the village hall and the associated programme, given the close proximity to the application site. So I think in terms of the unsustainable location, obviously it's set out in the report back. It wasn't considered that the harms outweigh the benefits. You've identified a series of harms that you do consider outweigh the benefits, so that would be sufficient to refuse application.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you, Helen. And Martin, you'd like to come in?
Just to say, just to remind members that we're in the tilted balance situation. So if you are going to refuse, you need to be satisfied that the adverse impacts significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. So just bear that in mind. And have we had a proposer and seconder? I don't believe we have, unless I missed it.
No, so we'll look for a proposer, and we'll look proposer as Barry and the seconder as Phil or Helen. Helen.
Mr. Chairman, I propose we overturn the officer's recommendation on the grounds of sustainability and loss of amenity to the parish hall. What the third one, Helen, please do remind me.
Loss of hedgerows or ecology.
Loss of hedgerows, I think 3 are good.
And unsuitable height of building.
Unsuitable height of building. What, loss of amenity?
Oh, as in terms of loss of amenity, would that not include the playground? Oh, right, okay, for the village hall and the playground in particular.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak before we go to a vote? No? Okay, all those in favour of Barry's recommendation that we go against officer recommendation and vote for refusal, please. Against? None. And abstentions? I'm abstaining on this one. Thank you. Okay, that one's carried then. That one's refused. Next, we go to the land at Manor Farm, Church Street to Lower Lane, Wantstrove, and demolition of existing agricultural buildings and removal of a slurry pit. And I think probably who's got this one? I can't see. Carlton again. Oh well, better luck with this one.
Third time lucky.
Okay, Carlton.
Put some money on it. Right, this application is within the village of Wantstrove. It relates to essentially a farm complex just on the well, not on the outskirts. It's essentially quite central to the village. So the village of Wantstrove isn't one of our primary or secondary villages in the local plan, and obviously it's not somewhere we would like to see further development. But we are, as a council, as the local planning authority, recommending approval in this case. So essentially what's going to happen is that the applicant is going to redevelop the site in its entirety. Okay? So all the buildings are removed, slurry pits and silage clamps, etc. Site will be tidied up quite significantly, and that will be replaced with 4 executive homes. So that's the site at the moment. It's the topographical thing. So this is the general proposed layout of the site. So it will just be slightly to the northwest of the village. So if you look at the surrounding buildings, so towards the south of the site there, you've got farm buildings, I think once upon a time related to that farm, but not so much now. We've got a sort of later ribbon development coming out of the village on the left-hand side there, which has been further extended in recent decades. So it sort of sits quite comfortably within the sort of continuing residential expansion of the village. All the buildings to the south of the site there were once upon the barns. They've all been converted to dwellings now. There's also a significant number of listed buildings adjacent to the site. Most of those barn conversions are listed, being linked to the original manor farm to the right there. And we've also got a Grade 2 Star Church just across the road. Just move on to see what the houses will look like. So that's an aerial photograph of the site at the moment. Appreciate large portal frame agricultural buildings, modern style, beyond those existing stone ones that have already been converted. So all that disappears, and the silage camp, etc. And then we replace it with these 4 dwellings. So there's 4 different house types. Each dwelling is slightly different, but there is a constant theme in terms of use of materials, etc., that runs right through the site. They're quite attractive, quite in keeping with the design and access statement submitted with the application. So they've gone around the village, they've had a good look around, see some of the common features that keep repeating themselves, especially in the more historic core of the village, and that's been included into the design of the units. They're very generous houses, but it's quite a generous plot, and they all sit comfortably within the site. So basically a garage stroke carport area. Each house will have a separate detached one of those. It's obviously important to the highway authority. You know, the 4 houses will be off what we call an adopted highway. Necessarily we will adopt it, but it needs to be built to an adoptable standard. So these are tracking diagrams that clearly show that a fire lorry or Wherry's lorry can access, I guess, the site, turning head at the end of the site. It's also important that a new access for the remaining agricultural operations on the site was suitable in terms of highway safety. So again, another tracking diagram to see that large tractor and trailer combinations can access and agree to that new access arrangement. These are sort of set of photographs. So on the top left there, it's approaching the site from the west. You can see the buildings there. On the corner there is the access. So move over to the right-hand drawing, closer to those buildings. See that tractor on the left, that's essentially existing access would be utilised for the main residential property. You'll see on the right there, you see the church quite close to the site. When we go around the corner to the bottom left picture, looking back to the way we just came up, and you'll see the extent of the large agricultural buildings, etc. And we go round the corner, then coming back into the heart of the village there, and you'll see that the old agricultural buildings that have been adapted and converted into dwellings just to the south of the application site. Church on the right there. That follows through all the way, residential properties either side of that road, all the way until the crossroads at the centre of the village. So the application does represent a departure from our local plan, but in this case, we don't consider that the quite a number of actual positive aspects of the scheme. See, it's disappointing, but moving the agricultural operations away from the centre of the village in terms of amenity is great, but obviously we don't like to see farms stopping production, etc. But it is helpful. The setting of any of the listed buildings would be greatly improved by the removal of those larger frame buildings and the layout of the site as proposed. So there's a lot of benefits with it. Wanstow is not completely devoid of services and facilities. It does have bus routes, it does have a village hall, it does have a pub, etc. So there are some services and facilities, but it is still an unsustainable location as per my last application. But in this case, we consider that the benefits, especially on the forum of development being brought forward in terms of 4 units, have quite an impact on our private housing supply. And so we are recommending approval of the condition.
Okay, thank you very much. We will move now to Michael Gate, please. You're online, somewhere.
Okay, can you see and hear me, Chair? Hello? Hello, can you see and hear me?
Yeah, you haven't got your camera on. We can hear you.
Yes, I have my end.
Okay, if we'll let you off, I think this time, if we can't see you, you can just talk.
It's probably for the best, isn't it? Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. I'm speaking as a councillor on behalf of Wanstow Parish Council. We review all applications very carefully, and on balance, we recommend approval for this application. We don't regard Wanstow as a sustainable location, and to correct the officer, there are only school buses here. But our parish plan, reconsulted and reissued just this year, shows parishioners believe that small-scale organic growth next to existing housing is sensible and acceptable, particularly on brownfield sites. Whereas we have opposed sites because they make flooding more likely, this application has carefully considered the surface water issue. The parish council agrees with the principle that the development replaces existing runoff from impermeable ground, and that restricting the discharge rate to greenfield conditions is a betterment. With care in meeting the suggested conditions 8 and 14, and by agreement with Highways, schemes submitted for approval should prevent road flooding in the immediate area, a regular problem for many years, and offer some mitigation of build-up further downstream. The building design has been tailored to fit the local vernacular, and we believe the houses will sit well in the landscape. Even views from the local playing field have been taken into account. New dwellings with appropriate energy and insulation profiles Occupying sensibly sized plots will be a benefit to the locality. They will replace the agricultural buildings and so reduce the associated heavy traffic through the conservation area in Church Street and at the junction with the A359 in the centre of the village. The impact on neighbours, as opposed to other sites, should be beneficial, and this is borne out by the lack of objection from residents.
Oh, move on.
In sum, we believe this application is for an appropriate quantity of buildings and has effectively considered the important impacts. Therefore, we recommend that the councillors should approve the application with the appropriate and we believe uncontroversial conditions recommended in the planning officer's report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Much appreciated your content, as always, your contributions. Thank you.
Bless.
Cheers. Okay, next we will go on to Mr. Kevin Bird, the agent. Okay, thank you, Mr. Bird. You've got 3 minutes, okay?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. I'll be brief. You've all had a long afternoon and Councillor Gay has said most of what I was going to say. My name is Kevin Bird from the Silverwood Partnership and I've been helping Mr. and Mrs. Pole, the applicants, on the relocation of this CARF unit. The officer said that this unit was going to close and it's not going to close. It's been relocated to their main facility a mile away. So the operation remains. It will probably grow on the new facility following the funding from the sale of this site. So nothing will be lost. That rural use will still continue, but elsewhere, and that will take traffic off the highway between the two locations. So last year I met with Councillor Michael Gay, who was then the board member, to ask him what we should be aware of when we were preparing a development scheme. And following his advice, an initial scheme was prepared, which Mr. and Mrs. Pole and I presented at the Parish Council meeting in January this year. And we asked for comments on the scheme and any other issues we should be aware of, and flooding, fly nuisance, smell nuisance was raised. So with the benefit of these comments, a detailed application was prepared and submitted in June this year. And we attended the Parish Council meeting in July when the application was discussed, so we could answer any questions raised by the Parish Council. And as Councillor Gay mentioned, it was voted unanimously to approve the application. As was also mentioned, and you read in the officer's report, there are no objections from any statutory consultee, any residents or other parties. The redevelopment of the site will enhance the area with traditionally designed low-carbon, energy-efficient homes. The homes will be heated using a combined solar and electric system, and the plan is to use the latest high-tech battery boilers which are coming to the market next year. These battery boilers will store excess power generated by the solar panels to heat domestic hot water, power heat pumps and underfloor heating when solar power generation is low. So I ask that you accept the officer's recommendation and move to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very much appreciated. Okay, I'm going to go to division councillors now, which I believe again are Barry and Phil. I think you stretch out that far, don't you? Just
Yeah.
yeah. So Barry, you go first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this area very well, and you go up Church Street through a lot of very nice old buildings. You go around the corner by the church, and on your right-hand side is a load of agricultural development. You then do a left and you go back into some more buildings. This is an absolutely wonderful scheme to make the transition from the nice old buildings into what are more modern buildings around the corner. But looking at the proposal, it looks as though they've been very sympathetically done. Now, they might be called executive houses. I don't know whether that's a good idea or not. And they always say, oh, we got modest gardens. Now, generally, the gardens on the backs of houses that are allowed, they are modest, i.e. very small. But these look useful sizes that you could actually do something with them. and you can put your conservatory and your sheds and all that sort of thing up, and you've still got a garden left so that you can do gardening rather than some of these estates that we nod through at the moment. It fits in very neatly with the area, and the applicant lives in a very old, I believe it's a listed building, and from my point of view, he will not allow anything to be built that doesn't meet his very own high standards. So I think we should recommend this for approval. That's not a proposal. Let's hear other people first, but I think it's an excellent scheme.
Thank you, Barry. Phil, you're next.
I'm not going to say, I'm going to say very little because I'm going to say exactly what Barry said. Absolutely brilliant. I totally agree with what Michael said. So I don't really need to say any more. I want to go home.
Okay, Phil, I think Helen wants to say something.
Yeah, it looks like a great scheme, and obviously I want to vote for it. There's just one thing, which is that once it's got approval, there's nothing to stop this site being sold to somebody else, as I understand. And then what we haven't got a condition for in here, in all these conditions, are the for the combined battery boilers and solar panels, or as Mikey Gay put it, appropriate energy and insulation profiles. We haven't got a condition asking for those. Could we add a condition for sustainability and renewable energy, please?
I think we could add it, but it would have to be specific. So the detail of what was said in the presentation isn't really available on the application so much. So if we can have something a little bit of a list of what they are providing, then we can make sure that that is implemented into the scheme.
Okay, with that, can we put that amendment into whoever proposed it? Or does it have to be an amendment? Or oh, okay. Well, I'd like to propose that we accept it, but with that amendment, please.
Okay, have you got a seconder then, Helen? Yep. Oh, actually, Barry slightly beat you to it, Martin. Okay.
If I may say, Mr. Chairman, I've been impressed today by Barry and Phil's empire. I don't consider it ward. I consider it an empire. It's remarkably inclusive. Yeah.
Very much so, isn't it? It's quite a large area. Yeah. Okay. Do we have any more questions before we move to vote? Martin? Yeah.
Well, my visit to the site yesterday, I was suggested that as well as a car, anybody buying a house there could do with a boat. That corner looked nice and dry in that picture on the sun. It was completely awash. I don't know. It was, you couldn't have waded through it.
Yeah,
but that is serious.
Yeah,
you wouldn't be able to get it on site as it is at the moment. Something.
Yeah, there is a surface water drainage condition. The application was accompanied by quite a thorough desktop study on how to improve drainage around, especially on the highway there. The highway drainage situation is a lack of maintenance plus insufficient drainage, essentially. So it's a combination of the two things, so this development will significantly improve the situation there. Or while we have a desktop study suggesting that it can be achieved, we don't have the actual detail. So hence the condition asking for the detail.
Thank you for that. Was that answer your question, Martin? Yep. Brilliant. Okay, I'm looking around. I can't see any more hands up, so we will go to a vote. All those in favour of Helen's recommendation to go with the officer recommendation? Yeah, with the additional, yeah. And that's unanimous, so that's carried. And this evening we don't.
Could I just ask for the clarification on what the additional condition was, please?
The sustainability profile of the houses. So what we'll specify we'll specify in a condition what the agent presented in the condition, so that there's a guarantee that it will be delivered.
Okay, thank you. And we don't have any appeals on our this month, but we'll have them next month, I believe. So you will be kept up to date. Okay, so I declare the meeting ended, finished.